is the first show of 2022, and it's going to be an award show. It's going to be a shit-talking show. It might get a little emotional, a little sad, a little happy, a little angry. It is the On the Mic podcast. I am Mike Pendleton. Before I introduce her, it would be very, what I believe, disrespectful and wrong of me to not acknowledge, and she doesn't know I'm doing this. For those of us in Chicago, like we know, if you follow the Bears, we lost Jeff Dickerson, who covered the Bears for ESPN, to cancer at 44 years old. They're shutting down the GoFundMe for JD's son, Parker, 11-year-old, who now lost both of his parents to cancer. And I just want to pay my respect to Jeff Dickerson because I wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for people like JD. I want to credit the entire sports community and the NFL, even when you see teams like the Packers donating $25,000. So, my condolences obviously to everyone, and including Parker, on the passing of JD. So we're going to try and transition from that sad note, but, it's always, I feel it was important to come in and give thanks to a guy who really helped me along the way. Kelly Murphy is back. Kelly, sorry to throw that in there just out of the blue, but, the thing with, and we're probably going to start with football today, but when you see cases like Antonio Brown steal the spotlight from something, we're talking on Thursday. And yes, there's been a lot that's happened throughout the week, but like we should be getting ready for the final week of the regular season, talking about playoff scenarios. We're talking about one person, a guy like, for me and Jeff Dickerson would probably be laughing at this entire situation. And it just sucks that we saw the beauty of the NFL the week before with the passing of John Madden, with the passing of JD. We saw all of the tributes. We saw all these people. We saw all the donations, over $1 million raised for Parker. And then a game that you go to, so I'm completely blaming you, a game you go to, Antonio Brown loses his shit. First and foremost, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well. Was a crazy end to 2021, like personally, professionally, all of the above. And it's just the train's been moving still in 2022. I'm doing well, but there's a lot going on. And just to add on to that, it was my first NFL game ever. And
ever?
I've been to the big four. I've been to hockey, baseball, and basketball, of course. My first NFL game, and Antonio Brown.
Like that was like, he had to know you were there. Tom Brady, AB, the Jets. Like what the hell? Like, all right. First, before we get into that, because I want you to talk me through your first NFL game, I want to say two things. One, because we're going to review like your year, my year. I'm just going to let this be known to kick off 2022. We talked about this multiple times throughout the years that we've known each other. It's now been years that we've known each other. I am going to make a serious effort, as long as the schedules work out, to have you on every pay-per-view this year. I think it's something
we got to do it.
Like, I literally think it's like something that benefits both of us, mainly me. And I want to see you, you said train keeps moving. And I'm not saying that my podcast is going to help you. You definitely help this podcast, but I think you will help me grow in a hosting way, because I get so focused on who I'm talking to, why I'm talking to them, and getting their backstory. But for you, you're such a special talent that we could sit here and know we're probably looking at least an hour plus, possibly two, like most of our episodes are, but we're going to talk so much. And I like to show just how you have such a variety of knowledge, and you're like a Swiss Army knife. Like, you can do everything. So that's first and foremost. And then to talk about all of these things going on, like we'll be able to make fun of me all year. We'll still be able to make fun of my dating stories all year. Like, here I was thinking, like, Kelly Murphy's going to the Jets Buccaneers game. I'm going to the Bears Giants game. Then I'm going to call it ghosted. Because COVID
Let's just call it that, for lack of a better word.
Because like COVID is a real thing, but trust me, I know everyone's number one thing when it comes to getting out of any function, anything. Let's go to you and talk about this Jets Buccaneers game. First off, where were you sitting?
So I was in the second row of the 300th, right at the 50-yard line. So I could see the entire field. It wasn't one of those situations where I had to look on the big screen to watch the plays. I was watching it right on the field. Can't complain. Very happy with my seat.
How cold were you?
It was 55 degrees.
Oh, that's
in
right.
New Jersey
right.
in January. Can you believe it? I literally wore a turtleneck under my Zach Wilson jersey. It wasn't even one of like those insulated, like really nice like turtlenecks. It was like $5 from Marshall's. And I wore a little Columbia fleece over it. It was not my parka. I was not in a puffer. I couldn't believe it. No gloves, hat, scarf.
She's just doing her whole wardrobe. Let you know, like, yo, I have fits. I have fits, by the way, but this was my fit because it was 55 in January. Props to you. So I have more questions. How drunk were you by kickoff?
Listen, I had a pretty rough go on New Year's Eve. I went to Atlantic City with my buddies, so I kept it light. I had a tall boy heading into the game, and then I had a Michelob Ultra at the half. I was good to go.
Look at you.
Is
Look
as
at
good
you.
as anyone.
Just taking it all in. By the way, since I got ghosted also on New Year's Eve twice in 3 days to kick off 2022, I was kissing my pillow at 10:30 at night on New Year's Eve. Like, I didn't even do the ball drop. Listen, turning 30 this year, so I'm just mailed it in. Like literally just mailed it in this like New Year's Eve. So
if there was a year to do it though, it was this one, in all fairness.
Yeah. Like, and it's like now it's getting wicked cold here. Wicked, like I'm from Boston. It's wicked cold outside. I woke up this morning and it said the temperature feels like -6. And I was like, I'm gonna stay right here. I'm gonna stay right here. I got a podcast to do with Kelly Murphy anyways. I don't need to move. So
and you're hurt, right? You still have your injury you're recovering from. So you have all the excuses. Do you want to talk about that for a second? Sure.
Because I can't incriminate myself because I'm no longer employed because my medical leave expired. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. So not only that, but how about this? You obviously, I don't know. Did you watch The Simpsons growing up, like as a kid?
I didn't.
Okay. There's a character on there, Dr. Nick.
Okay.
And he was like most known for like, hi everybody. And he was like a terrible doctor. And that's my doctor. I go in my 1 month checkup and he's like, I'm like, I can't curl my toes. It hurts when I stand on my foot. I'm using the crutches. He's like, okay, we'll do rest. Okay, that's it. We're just gonna rest. Like, no.
Right.
I'm like, is there physical therapy? Are there exercises I can do? He goes, well, if you can't curl your toes, there's not much I want you to do. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I go back for 2 months. Said, hey, I'm still having the same problems. I'm not having like the serious pain I was having in the beginning where it was hard to sleep and everything. I go, but like I can't do normal day-to-day stuff. I'm still using the boot. I said I'd recently stopped using the crutches, but I'm using the boot. And he goes, okay, now I'll send you to physical therapy. So now we're like 2.5 months into all of this. I finally go to physical therapy. And just last week, find out that it's nerve damage in my foot. So now I have to re-strengthen the entire foot. And my job's like, yeah, like we need like a doctor's note saying like when you're projected to come back. And I'm like, I'm not projected to come back until I finish physical therapy.
Right.
So like early February. And they're like, well, we need a doctor's note. Then the doctor like wouldn't give me the note. And it was just like all this. And so I am now on the market in more ways than one. And to top it all off, I'm sitting like crisscross, my legs crisscross watching TV. The other night, I get up off my bed, put my foot on the floor, and I feel, this is like after my first day of physical therapy, I feel my ankle like shift. And I was like, that's weird. That's weird. I was like, so, and it was like uncomfortable for a little bit. I go to bed that night, can't sleep. I'm like, I'm going to shower. It helps me sleep. Whatever, I'm in the shower. I go to turn off the water and completely wipe out. Slam, like if this is the tub floor, slam my bad foot into the tub, smack my wrist. Was supposed to go to physical therapy yesterday. Woke up and I was like, I can't go. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with, what'd you say?
Here we are now.
Yeah, here we are now. Your audio's a little like fuzzy right now. I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. But I did, however, because I did not go to the Bears game on Sunday, I did go to a Bulls game on Monday. And I just want to say, whether it's professional or not, no one heckles at any sporting event better than me.
Definitely not professional, but
Like literally had my entire section laughing their ass off. I'm not going to call out players' names, but I did let somebody know he was on a 10-day COVID contract. I did yell at another player, a former slam dunk contest winner who airballed in the game. I yelled at him for about 20 minutes.
Oh no.
I'm pretty sure Franz Wagner hopes that he was never German because I yelled his name in a German accent for about 30 minutes straight every time he touched the ball. And because I don't know how to like really talk shit, which is weird being in like the business that we're in of being around combat sports. I told this one player who nicked the rim on one of his shots. He was very built on his upper body. I called him too thick, and I got a laugh out of the Bulls bench. So that was a good time. Also dropped my phone under the seats at the arena.
That's tough at a sporting event.
At halftime. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't do a single thing. Thank God I looked the way I looked, because if I was trying to get numbers, I would have been like, can you come back after the fourth quarter? Like we could get like
right, like we can get this sorted out.
Yeah. Like, listen, it'd be great. It'd be like the perfect, like, oh my God, how'd you guys meet? Like, oh, I had to wait for him to get his phone. But yeah, so it was kind of cool, as everyone knows, and I'm rocking Knicks stuff. Not a Bulls fan, but it's pretty cool when you go see, like, you saw the Jets, but you saw the Buccaneers, right? You saw Tom Brady. Like, I always want to see players and teams when they're thriving.
Sure.
The last time I went to a Bulls game was like 5-6 years ago, I think. So it's been a while. And that was actually my first sporting event since COVID.
Wow.
I have not done a single thing since COVID. No regional fights, no pro fights, no no NBA games, no football games, nothing. And I don't know how they were there, but like in Chicago, they like instituted like you have to show proof of vaccination now. So like that was a big thing. Like you had to have your vax cards out, and So I mean, you know what? 2022 started rocky. I thought Halloween was in October, but apparently Ghost exists in the early part
all year.
Like all year. But all right, so let's get to this game, and let's get to the biggest thing, because I have it on in the background here.
Sure.
When Antonio Brown, and obviously I want to get real quick, when you're sitting where you're sitting, and you said you could see everything, and you said that was your first NFL game, did you like it? Did you wish, like, I'm not here to brag, I only had the seats that I had for the Bulls game because of a good friend of mine, and we were right behind the Bulls bench. And like, that's great. I love that.
Sure.
But like, I know when I go to fights, I've sat close to the cage. I've also sat in section 300, where for me, it's almost better for a fight because you're looking down at the action and you can see everything rather than try to move past the post and everything on the cage. So like, how did you feel your vantage point was during the game?
To be honest, I don't think I would have wanted to sit anywhere else, because I could see the entire field from where I was sitting. There was never a point where I felt like I was straining to see anything. And there was never a point where I felt that I had to look up at the video screen. Obviously, when things are being replayed and specific plays, of course, you're going to look up to see it again. But in real time, I could see everything perfectly. And with the whole Antonio Brown situation, the Bucs sideline was far side from me. So it wasn't like I had to like look down to try to see. It was right in my like vantage point. So I could see the full thing right from where I was sitting.
Did you see it all play out? Like, was there like, so obviously we see it on TV. That's one thing. But I know in the moment, like, because there's replays and everything like that, sometimes the TV camera is not going to capture that. But obviously I'm assuming there was a ruckus starting in the crowd. Like, what brought your attention to see like what Antonio Brown was doing?
Well, really, it was like the Bucs were kind of getting set up to run a third down play. So I was just looking around because nothing no one had snapped the ball yet. I was kind of just looking around. And then I had seen Mike Edwards, because you can't miss Mike Evans, because you can't miss him. He's huge. Walk over to Antonio Brown, and I see him like trying to, like, it looks like from my point of view, like reason with him. And this is as AB's taking off his pads and his uniform. And then Evans ultimately gives up because it's clear like he's taking all of his stuff off. It's not happening. And then, like, as everyone saw from there, threw it into the crowd, took a few steps, took the undershirt off, threw it into the crowd, and then was literally hyping up the crowd to stop the Bucs on third down. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. And then my phone's blowing up with everyone being like, what's going on with AB? Like, and I'm like, to be honest, you guys probably know better than I do, because you can hear the commentary team. You probably have a better view at this point now on TV. You're watching it, be replayed a million times. I don't know what's going on.
The sad part is, I don't think any of us know what's going on still. And so would you say that's one of the most bizarre, if not the most bizarre things you've ever seen while at a live event?
It's probably the most bizarre thing I've ever seen at a live event between fans and players. Like, a lot of situations, that's got to be the weirdest.
So, like, let's get into this, because I this is such a, obviously it's killing the headlines right now. And like, so we have AB walks off the field. He releases like a rap song later on Sunday while getting picked up from some like somewhat famous driver in New York City. I didn't know you could be famous for being a driver. I guess you can, like, whatever. And then we have Bruce Arians saying, he's no longer a Buck right after the game. 2 or 3 days go by, he's still a Buck. And then we have yesterday, and then we have this morning, and AB released a statement last night. Then this morning he comes out and, like, I see you're taking the clothes off on the field being bizarre, and I raise you posting screenshot of text messages while adding my own personal bank account info in the screenshot.
It's been something new literally every day, because I feel like up until he released his own statement and then like was putting out the screenshots, the story was, what is his contract situation? Is he still on the Bucs? Because Arians said he was no longer a Buck, but he was still on the roster. And then, the tables start to turn. Like, the statement comes out, he ultimately gets released, I think just a few hours ago officially. He's putting out screenshots of who knows if that's really, who the checks were with. He's adding Tom Brady in these posts. I'm like, what is going on?
This is, and like, there's such a deeper conversation we're about to get into about this, but like, here, I got to dissect the things that bother me the most about this right now. One, first of all, don't post your bank info. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, because now outside of football, he's just adding a whole nother layer of like drama, because screenshots exist. And now you got to probably move that entire bank account.
Absolutely.
Like 100%. Because I had people tweeting me, like random people that don't follow me, like, send me the screenshot. And I'm like, huh? No, like, I'm good, fam. Like,
right.
I'm not going to be the reason you try to rob AB. Like, I'm good. Like, no, you can go hack somewhere else. But with that, so that's odd. And I think the thing that bothers me is when the initial statement, I believed him. I believed the ankle injury. I believed it was heartfelt. I thought maybe some time away, because this was like a marriage breakup, right? Like, you're done, we're done, but like, you don't have to move out tomorrow. Sure. Like, a couple days later go by, like, yes, it's over, you got to come get your stuff, like, whatever. And that's how I felt the Buccaneers were going to go about it. That is. And then they officially made the decision to release him today. Now, there could be some football sides to that. I don't know when he's eligible to sign. It may not be this week, but whatever. This whole situation, and I'll give you the floor for this, because you know how I feel about this topic. The first thing on Sunday and the days following, everybody's mentioning CTE, mental health. He's never been the same since he got hit by Vontaze Burfict. That might be true, but we don't know that. What I want to get from you is your thoughts on people saying, like, yeah, well, he's clearly got some issues going on. And we need to be, like Tom Brady said, we need to have a little compassion. We need to find passion and love for people who are going through this. And you're hearing a lot of outside NFL players say that. But I don't necessarily know that that is the case. And I'm not saying he doesn't have mental health issues, but I don't think we need to rush to label it as that's what this is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's completely out of left field to say things like that. And I get what Tom Brady was saying. Like, listen, we need to look at this with, empathy and compassion. But at the bottom line, AB has had issues with multiple teams, multiple coaches, multiple players. And everybody thought that this situation was going to be different, playing alongside Tom Brady, playing under Bruce Arians, that they would be, the team, the coaching staff to kind of keep him within a certain range. And it just wasn't the case again. I think Mina Kimes said the bottom line is Antonio Brown has had problems everywhere. And that's really all we can say about it at this point. You know what I mean? Like, if he needs to get help, that's something he needs to do on his own. But in this case, it was just another issue now with another team, with another coaching staff. And that's all we really know from the outside.
See, the thing that bothers me about this is I'm going to use some classic examples of, and I do want to blame social media for magnifying whatever mental health issues that they want to label this as. But I'll look at Dennis Rodman, one of the greatest NBA players, right?
My favorites.
His team, especially in Chicago here, and one of, if not the greatest player to ever play the game of basketball, understood what was standing next to him in the gym. And he said, listen, we gotta let Dennis go to Vegas for a couple of days. And then he said, well, I'm gonna go get him back. Because we gotta let him go, but I'm gonna go get him back. And for comparison reasons, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, and you're vouching for this guy not once but twice. I'm not putting this on Brady, but like, you stepped up to the plate. You said it's going to be different this time. You won a Super Bowl. You know who you're vouching for. It's telling your parents, hey, I know this girl has cheated on me before and she's been arrested in the past, but I'm vouching for her. We're going to get married, have kids. Everything's going to be great. And then she robs your entire family and you're like, compassion. We need to find compassion for her. She's clearly not okay. So that's that. And then I look at a Stephon Marbury, another one, right? And a Ron Artest would be the third one, and the Meta World Peace. All those teams outside of Marbury, they knew what they had in their player. And I do think the coaches involved, and Phil Jackson, I think, was involved in two of them, they knew what was sitting in front of them. They knew the person, not just the athlete that was in their rooms, that was in their gym. So for me, it's, we could talk about AB, the football player, all day long, but I really want to look at the people around him, and that is teammates, that is coaches. Now, I will say sometimes it's on them, right? Like, I had just watched the Stephon Marbury documentary on Netflix that came out a couple years ago, so that's why he's fresh in my mind. But He also knew, like, look, man, this is not working out for me. And he's, like, beloved in China. There's a Stephon Marbury museum in China. And you would have never guessed that. Like, you would have, if you watched his career, you would have never guessed that. And they were talking about him and Allen Iverson back in college. But like, at some point, it comes down to, it needs to be self-realization, and it needs to be realization and understanding from those around you. And I used a basketball example, but I could use a football one too. Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco, like, these were guys that were labeled locker room cancers, but not to this magnitude. But everyone knew, like, who they were. Like, I'll never forget when the Dolphins were on Hard Knocks, Matt Moore, who I think was the backup, he might have been the starter at quarterback for the Dolphins, was on Hard Knocks. And he was telling either a teammate or a coach, this part I don't remember, but he goes, well, I saw Chad in the hallway today. And he asked me what I was doing on my off day. And I said, I don't know. He goes, well, I'll be open. If you need to throw me the ball, I'll be open. And yeah, it's just showing, like, the humor side of Chad Johnson or Chad Ochocinco. But, like, everyone knew. And it seems like, to me, whether it was Oakland, New England, Tampa, and at the end of his time in Pittsburgh, like, I don't know if these teams knew who they had. or they were just glossing it over like, well, the guy's really, really good. So like, whatever. And social media has definitely played a part into it, no doubt. But like, you got to know, you have to understand the people you have in your building.
For sure. And I think honestly, when they brought him into Tampa Bay, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians especially wanted to be right about him because of how talented he is and how big of a playmaker he could be and how big of an advantage he could give them on the field. So I think they wanted to be right so bad. And then I think after this whole situation, Tom Brady was trying to be, Mr. Perfect Tom Brady and say the right thing in his post-game presser. But I think that deep down at the end of the day, like, he knows he was wrong. You know what I mean? As great as he can be on the field, and he did have, he made great plays this year too. It's just that's who you're dealing with. And sometimes things just don't change no matter how bad you want to. Even if Tom Brady was the perfect teammate and Bruce Arians was the perfect coach for him, sometimes people just don't change. And you kind of just have to swallow it and move on.
What are your personal thoughts like on Antonio Brown? Like, do you think he should play in the NFL again? Do you like, if I just said Antonio Brown to you and nobody else is listening anyways, how would you break down Kelly Murphy, Antonio Brown?
It's a shame because he's so talented. And at the end of the day, that would probably be one of my biggest, if not my biggest takeaway about him is just how talented he really was. Do I think he should get signed to another team? No. Do I think he will? Yes, I do. Because we see this all the time, the people enable it. And because when you're that talented, you can get away with these kinds of things for a long time. You know what I mean? Even if you think this is the last straw, walking out in the middle of the game, for whatever reason, we don't know what that is. We may never know what it is. But at the end of the day, we saw you walk out in the middle of the third quarter when your team was trying to come back against, one of the worst teams in the NFL. Well, for whatever reason it was, that's the lasting memory at this point. You would think that would be the last straw, but I don't think it will be. I do think we'll see Antonio Brown play again. He is already in his statements alluding to that. Next season we'll be back, business will be booming. And I'm sure it will be in his new bank account because he's going to have to make a new one. So.
All right. I'm throwing this out of left field to you. In their respective sports, who has blown it more, John Jones or Antonio Brown?
I'd probably Antonio Brown just because Dana lets John get away with so much. Like so much. It's one thing after the other where I'm like, this is it, this is it, this is it. And it's never it, honestly. John is preparing to become, the heavyweight champion now after relinquishing the light heavyweight belt that he held forever. Like, he's not in a bad spot, really.
And that's the craziest thing is because on the surface, if I reword my question, who has done more worse things that should have cost them their career, John Jones or Antonio Brown?
Ugh.
Right? Like the answer is John Jones. The answer is like John Jones has been in so much more legal trouble. And like, yeah,
and just so many things, like almost everything.
So many things. But he's in a sport where, as Dana White and everybody else has said, these are independent contractors.
Right.
So like, is there conduct policy? Sure. And is it enforced?
The UFC Code of Conduct.
Yeah. That's the UFC's conduct code is as good as a Chicago public high school dress code. Like can't wear.
Is great. Like I get it. All like corporations, companies, promotions have to have one.
Right.
But like I was just cracking up a few months ago when DC referenced it. He's like, you gotta take a look at that code of conduct. And I was like, do we? Like, when's the last time you dusted that off?
It's just like say hello to everyone when you walk in. And like that, and don't kill anyone. Like that's it. Yeah, like War Machine. That's our conduct code of policy. Don't be that guy. Don't be War Machine. But that's so crazy because, and it kind of shows the monopoly of the NFL, right? Like this guy is getting talked about so much in Antonio Brown for the last 4 days. And every single thing he does for the rest of his playing career will be magnified. But when John Jones calls up Dana White and is like, yo, all right, we had this heavyweight title fight. I'm ready to go. I'll take the winner. Dana's like, all right, cool. And then you're going to hear like Dana White or Joe Rogan. John Jones is the biggest baddest, one if not the best badass to ever fight in the UFC of all time. And then the promo music's gonna hit, and it's gonna be whoever he's fighting. Everyone's going, oh my God, John Jones. But the moment we go, Antonio Brown is signed with the Seattle Seahawks for 2022, they're like, oh my God, now here we go again. Like,
let's see how long this lasts.
Yeah, and it's like it should be the same conversation, but that's neither here or there. We're gonna be giving out awards in a little bit, but sticking in the NFL, I'm sure you've caught wind of this Aaron Rodgers situation, and I just want to go on record and say everyone that's a Bears fan or covers the Bears or whatever has been brutalized by Aaron Rodgers throughout his Packers career. 98% of us hate him. Like, we hate him. I speak for the masses. Aaron Rodgers is not beloved in the city of Chicago. But you have to know your time and place. Hub Arkish, who does some work on 670 The Score as well as other outlets, went on radio this week here in Chicago.
Coincidence that he covers the Chicago Bears?
Wait, what?
Coincidence that this man covers the Chicago Bears?
I mean, he technically said he's an NFL insider for whatever. Right, whatever.
He covers the Bears.
He goes on radio and says Aaron Rodgers, he won't be voting for Aaron Rodgers because is he the most valuable on the field? Maybe, but he's selfish and he's the biggest jerk in the NFL and he's not vaccinated. And what he did to his team earlier this year was selfish, blah, 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 blah. He goes on. Rodgers calls him a bum. Hub Arkish had to go through 24 hours of just being crucified on social media. He writes this long form apology, and now all the time
wasn't really one.
Yeah, right. He's like, I probably shouldn't have talked about my vote, but like I did, and I'm sorry. Like,
and I'm still not voting for Aaron Rodgers.
And I'm not voting for Aaron Rodgers, by the way. And I'm not the only one. Now there's a lot to like decipher in all this, right? First and foremost, I'm gonna go back to the guy we were just talking about. I think Tom Brady's the MVP. I legitimately think Tom Brady's the MVP this year. I think he leads in almost every category. When it comes to passing stats in the league, his team is well on their way to being Super Bowl contenders again, as are the Packers. And yes, Aaron Rodgers has great numbers, but it almost feels like for me that it's that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady rivalry all over again. Peyton was always very, very good in the regular season, but Tom just had that little something to get him over the top. And I just wonder if, listen, 4 MVPs is great, but 1 Super Bowl, right? So like, there's not a debate over who's the better quarterback. I think we all know who it is, but that's the first thing. Tom Brady is my MVP. And you can make a case for Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor, as well as Aaron Rodgers. But I think the bigger thing here is, we have like the World MMA Awards that's given out by Fighters Only. I think it's this past year was like the 13th annual. And like, it's a celebration, right? Like it's fun. And Ariel Helwani does his whole thing. I know Morning Combat with Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell. I'm sure you guys gave out awards on Sirius XM. Like, we do it all, and it's fun. And it's like no one that we're gonna give awards out to is gonna be yelling at the person in the gym across from them like, "I want submission of the year." Like, it's like, I get it. Like the prestigious awards in these top sports, these NFL MVP, like that does matter. It helps when it comes to the Hall of Fame and all of that.
Right.
But I don't know that it needs to be as magnified as it's become.
Well, to be honest, like the only reason it's being talked about right now is because this man decided to make it, take it upon himself to let the masses know that he wasn't voting for Aaron Rodgers, which is just flat out ridiculous. It brought me right back to that one voter that didn't vote Derek Jeter into the Hall of Fame, and he got one vote shy of it being unanimous. I mean, I don't believe his name ever came out. I think that stayed anonymous. But it's just like things like that. You're just looking to start a conversation, and for what? It's not about you. Like, make your vote and shut up. Quite frankly, no one cares who you're voting for. You could have very well went out there and said nothing about Aaron Rodgers, but I'm voting for X because Y. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
He didn't do that. He came out and just flat out said he wasn't voting for Aaron Rodgers pretty much because he thinks he's a bad person. And I loved what Aaron Rodgers said. He was like, it's not the most vaccinated player award. It's not. I'm vaccinated. Do I think people should get vaccinated? Sure. But I personally think it's a hands down Aaron Rodgers is your MVP. And I just think that this guy said he wasn't, I won't even say his name. I just think that he said it to give himself a little bit of attention for a little bit of time.
And I think that's what bothers me with these like major sports, right? It's like if we all want to talk about like, hey, this is rookie of the year, this MVP, this is that, like defensive player of the year. All those things technically do matter. But when it becomes like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and like you have to be behind closed doors and it's like we're not in court. Like this isn't like it's literally treated like a court case. Every award is treated like a court case. We're going to go lock ourselves in this chamber. Only 50 of us. I know there's hundreds of people in the media who cover our sport, but these 50 that we chose, and most of them are 89 years old, these are the ones who are going to vote on our Hall of Famers and our season award winners. And it's just like, nobody cares. I don't care who your 50 are. It should be more than 50. You should incorporate the craziest thing to me is that like the NBA All-Star game includes a fan vote, but nobody gives a damn when the awards come out, right?
Right.
So like, let's put on an entertaining thing for the fans. Let's put on the All-Star game and they can have a say in it. But when it comes down to our votes, the Pro Bowl, same thing in the NFL. But when it comes down to our season award winners, like that's the Chamber of Secrets. Nobody say anything about it. Like, I guess the rule is you're not supposed to talk about your MVP vote until after it's like been announced. And like, oh, this is why I voted for so and so. And it's just like, it's just not like, it's not as big of a deal about who's voting or why as we're making it out to be. Like, I just find it kind of repulsive the way they go about like this. I'm voting for so and so, and I'll tell you in 3 months.
Right. No, I actually completely agree with you. Like at the end of the day, I don't really care who's voting. I don't really care who's voting for who and why in the moment, as long as the outcome is correct. You know what I mean? Like you said, you can make the case for a few different players this year. Like I said, I do think Aaron Rodgers is hands down your MVP. But all of this pre-talk leading up to it, I don't care about, which is why I don't understand why this guy even just flat out came out and said that, because it's like, number one, who are you? I had to Google you to see who you were, who you covered, and pretty much why you have a vote. And second, why are you talking about who you're specifically not voting for at this stage in the game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't vote for one girl to be like the prom queen back in high school because she turned me down. So I was like, she won 99 out of the 100 votes. But as long as I can now 10 years or 10 plus years later say, listen, you didn't win unanimously prom vote because I thought you were a bad person. Like, sorry.
As long as the outcome's right, like I said, it still irks me that Derek Jeter wasn't a unanimous, first ballot Hall of Famer, but regardless, he's in it. As long as the outcome is as it should be, none of this matters,
I agree, but I also want to kind of curve the conversation now because I don't think it matters as much for season awards. I do think it matters for Hall of Fame awards. And I'm not the biggest fan of this guy, but Chris Carter was on NFL Network this morning on Good Morning Football and told the story of how, like, he was highly profiled as kind of a drama guy and he had, substance abuse issues and he overreacted, as he said, the first year because people didn't like him. Like he was second all time in almost all the receiving stats at that time. And because of his reaction, he didn't come close for the next 5 years because of his reaction of not getting in on year one. Now, whether or not everyone wants to be in the Hall of Fame, that's on the players who put their shoulder pads on or their basketball jersey on. That's on you if you want to be in the Hall of Fame or not. But it is a legacy standpoint that carries with your family for all eternity. And so for me, I do think if we're going to treat anything like it's special, it should be what's special, which is getting into the Hall of Fame. There have been people who have won regular season awards in all sports who we've never heard from after they've won the award. but we'll remember every single Hall of Famer. And I think that's where voting should be truly special. If it's 50 or if it's 10 people, tell me why after you do it. And I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to discuss why beforehand. Now, I do think people like the guy who didn't vote for, or girl, whoever it was, who didn't vote for Derek Jeter, that should be accounted for. Like you should speak up on that, because I think accountability does matter, because I do think certain things like that matter. So for me, it's just, when you have something like that, you got to take responsibility for Hall of Fame voting. But I really don't care who your regular season award winners are.
No, you're 100% right. Hall of Fame voting is something that, stays with you forever, literally. You, your family. These regular season awards are great. And of course, if you have a great season and you're in the MVP talks, who wouldn't want to be the MVP? But at the end of the day, getting into the Hall of Fame is much more significant than the regular season awards, for sure.
I mean, we're both basketball fans. I can tell you straight up, LeBron's run where he was winning MVP every year, Derrick Rose came in and won it. It was almost like the NBA was like, we got to give it to someone else because LeBron keeps winning with the MVP. And I can say, I can't speak for him, but if you took away the one MVP award, gave Derrick Rose a couple NBA championships and a potential Hall of Fame full career that wasn't derailed by injuries, 100%, he'd take that all day long.
And you even heard there was a few seasons where LeBron was winning the MVP, but he was putting up really, really, really good defensive stats too. And he was like, I'm coming for that defensive player of the year. Not to say he didn't care about his MVPs, but like he was joking about wanting to win defensive player of the year. And joking's a bad word because I'm sure he really did want to win it. You know what I mean? But it's like, bro, you're literally putting up MVPs year after year and you're talking about winning defensive player of the year. Like he would never get into the Hall of Fame and then be like, you know what, I wish like 2012 I won that defensive player of the year. Like that's not something to joke about, even put in the same realm.
I think on the media side, the regular season awards don't need to matter as much. I think internally on a football field, on a basketball court, baseball diamond, I think it matters. I think it absolutely matters. Sure. Because it matters because it strives you to be better than the person next to you and across from you, no matter who you are. I mean, look, I just said I went to the Bulls game. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are literally top 6, top 7 in the MVP voting race right now. You don't think they're going to battle every single day in practice? You don't think that's
an element to the game? Like, it's fun. It's fun for everybody. The players involved, the teams, the fans. Like, I'm not knocking the regular season awards at all. I love it.
No, I'm knocking it from a media side standpoint.
Yes.
Because honestly, from the fan standpoint, like when Jokic won the NBA MVP last year, people were pulling up his like picture from when he was like 13 and when he first entered the league and like, look at the fat boy who won MVP years later. Like, that's fun. Like, let's make it fun. Like, let's not be so serious about it. And honestly, I'm going to say this. Part of the reason why I'm not giving Rodgers MVP this year is because he had to score a touchdown at Soldier Field and say, I've owned you all my life. Like, I get it, Aaron. I get it. I see it twice a year for the last 15 years. I get it. Thanks, dude. Thanks for pushing my face in the ground and rubbing dirt all over me. Thanks, dude. No, if I was
this is why you don't get an MVP vote.
And I'm okay with that. And I am okay with that all day long. I will never want to, because what am I going to do? Be at Christmas when everyone knows the job I have and like they're like, wow, NFL season is great. Who are you liking for MVP?
Notice how we said it just after the holidays, though, to avoid the big gatherings where he has to now discuss it.
Yeah, right. But like
right.
But like those people bring it up around the like those families 100% ask their family members about it. Like, where do you think you're leaning for the MVP? Like, shut up! I don't care. I'd rather just go to family gatherings, get drunk on Christmas, and talk about why I don't want to vote for Aaron Rodgers. Like
exactly. Like, even though I do, but I get what you're saying.
No, but that is the only reason why. Like, listen, you can't deny what he's done. If we're gonna be real here, I have one bone to pick with Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur this year. Okay, I was trying to kick off 2022 perfectly, right? Get ghosted for the Bears game. Watch the Packers-Vikings game. Shout out to PointsBet, who all NFL season long has given users a $10 free bet for every Sunday night game. So I kind of just throw things together, right? Like player props, passing props, all that.
Sure.
I took the over 2.5 on Aaron Rodgers touchdown Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings, and I took him to have 300 yards. Don't know if you're bringing up the stats, Kelly Murphy, but he threw for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. You screw me my entire life, Aaron Rodgers. That is literally what you do. That's what you do. That's what you do. And you know what? For that reason, I would give it to anybody else. I would
have this conversation with Hub or Kish or whatever his name is. I'm sure he would love to talk with you about this.
I guarantee you, Hub would throw that. Hub would throw that on radio and be like, I know this guy who told me Aaron Rodgers cost him $350. Like,
and that's my second reason why I'm not voting for him in the MVP.
And Rodgers would be like, well, they're both bums, and clearly that guy's poor. So why?
Aaron Rodgers would be like, I own Mike Pendleton. So
yeah.
I own a share of him.
We are in our first ever week 18 of the NFL season. It's our final week of the regular season. I think the greatest thing about week 18 in the NFL is, do you know the crazy scenario revolving around the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend?
I don't. What is it?
So if the Jaguars somehow defeat the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday, the Chargers and the Raiders can make the playoffs both, and they play each other on Sunday night if they tie.
I love these scenarios. This is like, it's one of my favorite parts of the last week of the NFL. It's like, if X beats Y and then A and B tie, but C beats D, then this team makes the playoffs. But if all of that happens in reverse, then Team F is eliminated. It's a train wreck, and I love every second of it.
But like, can you imagine Jacksonville beats Indianapolis, Sunday Night Football, both teams want to make the playoffs? Like you should just knee out the entire game. Like, just knee out the entire game. Now,
that's insanity.
The only thing that kind of threw me for a loop with this, if it was reverse, if it was like, if the Chargers lose to the Jaguars and then the Colts and Raiders made it, it's a non-division game. Like, that would make sense to knee it the whole time. But I think there's got to be a sense of pride with the Chargers and Raiders being in the same division. Like, no. We're going to make the playoffs. Screw
100%.
you guys. Like,
Absolutely.
That is the only bummer of all this. I know people are hoping for a Sunday night kneel down, but like, that is the craziest scenario I've ever heard coming into the playoffs.
I'm excited. I did not know that. So that makes me look forward to that game even more.
Like, everyone's going to be a Trevor Lawrence fan on some. They should be a Trevor Lawrence fan.
Man, he's let me down. I know he's playing with nobody, but.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kelly, because I wanted to talk about something before we talk playoffs. And I wanted to talk about the bitterness being a Chicago fan and having to go through every single effing game that the Bears are on a broadcast, especially when it's the big name announcers talking about, hey, the Bears probably look back to a few years ago and wondering what could have been with Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. Well,
Sure.
Today a nice little rumor on Cleveland.com came out, and I wanted to go to it because it said Baker Mayfield needs to be reassured things will be changing or he will be asking for a trade. So that led me to go, if you think life is bad as a Bears fan, let's look at a few of the drafts from the last couple of years. And specifically, let's look at 2018 and let's look at 2020. In 2018, there were 5 notable quarterbacks taken. At number 1 was Baker Mayfield. Number 3 was Sam Darnold. And then Josh Allen to the Bills at number 7. And I don't have the rest of them here, but I will bring the rest of them up. However, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and all the way down at the end of the first round, Lamar Jackson. Okay. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. 2 out of those 5 make sense. Baker Mayfield. Now, if the Cleveland Browns might be moving on 4 years into Baker Mayfield's NFL career, I wonder if they would have liked to have a Saquon Barkley, a Bradley Chubb, an all-pro and Quentin Nelson, or Josh Allen. We don't hear that. We don't hear that on Cleveland Browns games. We hear about how their running game is so good and how Odell Beckham was a cancer. So that bothers me, okay? Then we go to the 2020 draft of last year, and I look at, obviously, Smoking Joey B, Joe Burrow going number 1. But then I look at the rest. I look at 2 through 6. I look at the Washington Redskins now. Great for Chase Young. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. He's been out this year with a torn ACL. Jeff Okudah went to the Lions at 3. Yeah, the Lions who have had Tim Boyle. Shout out to Tim Boyle at quarterback the last couple of weeks because of Jared Goff. They moved on from Matthew Stafford and have Jeff Okudah as their top 3 pick. Andrew Thomas, a giant who doesn't know what left tackle is. And then the lovely Miami Dolphins drafted Tua. All over who? Justin Herbert. 2 through 6, all passed on Justin Herbert. But we never watch a Washington game or a Detroit Lions game, and we never dissect their quarterback mistakes. But because Patrick Mahomes, who you can call me bitter still, that's fine. And Deshaun Watson, that's my favorite part. They go, yeah, the Bears could have had Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, newsflash, I don't want Deshaun Watson on my team right now.
I was going to say, dodge the bullet.
And Patrick Mahomes has won 1 Super Bowl. He's won 1 Super Bowl.
Kansas City's showing some cracks this year for sure.
And this is going to lead into the playoff conversation because I'm going to start our little playoff preview with a massive, out of nowhere, kind of crazy hot take.
Okay.
I think the Cincinnati Bengals can run the table in the AFC.
I don't hate that at all. They're super talented and they're clicking right now. Very much so.
I do think in some sports, it does matter if who's hot at the right time. And I think the NFL is one of those. You got to be healthy. You got to be clicking on all cylinders. The only thing, and it's something I heard today, is that they are young. So they haven't been there, done that. But guess who has been there, done that? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They've been there, done that during their time together at LSU. They ran the table. Joe Burrow had one of the best college seasons of all time. So I don't know that it's a terrible idea or terrible prediction. I mean, you got the Tennessee Titans who are getting Derrick Henry back. You do have the, as you've said, the crack showing Kansas City Chiefs. And then you have the New England Patriots. I know we're still, I believe, we're waiting on the last few in the AFC, but the Titans are there. The Jaguars, the Bengals are there. The Chiefs are there. The Patriots are there. The Bills will be there as well. Just figuring out who 6 and 7 are. Is it the Raiders and Chargers? Is it the Colts and Raiders? Is it the Colts and Chargers? We still have to figure that all out. But I don't know what teams are clicking. Even the Buffalo Bills aren't clicking all that much right now. So I kind of like Cincinnati. I don't know if I'm going to make them my Super Bowl pick, but I like Cincinnati gearing up for the playoffs right now.
I mean, I think NFL more than anything is about being hot at the right time. You only get 1 game a week, and then all of a sudden it's the freaking playoffs. I don't hate what you're saying about the Bengals at all. I think Joe Burrow is an absolute stud. And like I said, the Bengals are just hot right now. I don't know if I would make them my Super Bowl pick. I so want to make the Packers my Super Bowl pick, but I hate what they do in the playoffs usually.
What is it? Are you like a low-key Packers fan here?
I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan.
Oh.
He and Drew Brees are my 2 favorite quarterbacks of all time. So I root for the Packers. What?
Explains a lot.
Yeah, you being a Bears fan explains a lot.
That's why as someone who gets their heart broken by sports all the time, you would think girls are no problem, but here we are.
But I also, it's hard to bet against Tom Brady in the postseason. So I'll be curious to see how week 18 plays out and kind of what the playoff landscape looks like ultimately when the regular season wraps up. Then I will make a more educated pick. My preliminary pick, though, prior to the regular season wrapping, I will go with the Packers.
Okay. I kind of let it slip earlier that I still think Tom Brady is Tom Brady. And I don't think it can be understated what he's doing at 44 years old.
Right.
Is remarkable.
For sure.
Packers are hot, so it kind of takes away from my Bengals take that, it could be the Bengals and the Packers because they're the 2 hottest teams right now. The Rams are actually extremely hot as well. The Cardinals got back on track. I think the team that we should all prepare ourselves for an extreme disappointment is the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC. But somehow the Eagles squeaked in and they're going to go to the playoffs.
Of course they did.
Like whatever. If there was any sign, and if there's a team I don't like as much as the Green Bay Packers, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. If there's any sign of what's to come for the playoffs, the Eagles fans should look at FedEx Field and the Washington football team, because as your team clinched the playoff berth, the stadium you clinched it in collapsed. So that should be a metaphor.
Did you see the letter Jalen Hurts wrote?
Yeah. Yes. Do you think he wrote that, or the team wrote that, or his lawyer wrote that?
I mean, I think he wrote it with a bit of editing from an authority.
For sure.
Of some sort.
Sure.
I didn't really get the point of it, but everyone was like, whoa, like 10-7, Jalen Hurts. I was like, okay, like, I'm not mad he wrote it. Okay.
By the way, it was like Antonio Brown's rap song came before Jalen Hurts' like letter, which is actually
a weird week in the NFL.
Incredibly weird week, which is very surprising too, because like that should have taken kind of the spotlight. Like player safety was put at risk, like, and fans safety was put at risk. I don't know if I'm gonna make a full prediction. I mean, I guess I will, right? I'm gonna go Bengals Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. And
wouldn't be mad about that.
And right. Most women wouldn't be. That'd be two of the most handsome quarterbacks in the NFL. Going.
Joe Burrow's got like such a swag about him when he pulls the cigar out. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Like and like here and there when I do watch college football, I love Joe. Like I love LSU. And I was kind of speechless when he wrapped up the national title and did the whole sitting on the chair, smoking the cigar. I was like, I almost had a Terrell Owens moment where I was crying, like, that's my quarterback. Like, that's Joey B. And I thought there was no way the Bengals would pass up on him. And I'm glad that they didn't. I mean, this dude is literally the best thing to happen to Cincinnati since Carson Palmer. Like,
I love Joe Burrow. Like, I love him, and I'm so glad that things are working out now. Like, that the Bengals look good. They're firing on all cylinders. Like, genuinely nothing makes me happier because I really like him a lot.
And to your fanhood of Aaron Rodgers, I will say this. For the longest time, especially when you're younger, like, and part of the reason I started rooting for LSU is like, you're so sick of the same team being in there every year. And it was Alabama for me. And I was like, oh, I just can't. And like, they beat up on LSU, right? It would always be Bama beating LSU, and then Jamarcus Russell and Matt Flynn and all these terrible quarterbacks from LSU. Joey B kind of broke that up, and that's been beautiful. And there's been a slew of players that come out of LSU. But to that, like, I am now at the point, a near 30-year-old, who is just going to appreciate greatness. And as much as I say it all of the time, as much as I can't stand Aaron Rodgers doing what he does to the Chicago Bears, I'll watch him 16 more or 15 more games out of an 18-game season and go, that guy's so good. The way he throws the ball to Devontae Adams, it's literally what every dad and son dream of for pitch and catch on a random Tuesday after school, right? Like, that's what you want. That's literally what you want. And he makes it look so effortlessly. Like, but to that point, I just want Tom Brady to stack rings. I'm literally
gonna say, you're talking to a Jets fan that loves Tom Brady because I respect greatness. I literally at the game texted Jimmy Smith, my host, and Mike Russo, my co-producer, and I said, when Tom Brady drops back out of the pocket, it's art. It's art. I was like, I am watching a beautiful movie right now with this man. Like, he is unbelievable.
That's literally as someone who Conor McGregor got me into the sport of MMA and the UFC and changed my whole career because of the persona and the way he was winning inside the octagon. When he met with Khabib, I was able to just put it all away and go, I know who's winning this fight.
Right.
And it was literal art watching Khabib do what he does. I think we're at a point in society, as much as social media runs our life, we need to focus on the fact that, like, we got to appreciate greatness while it's here, because once it's gone, it's gone. And as a big basketball fan, I had to do that with LeBron James. As a football fan, I had to do that with Tom Brady. But I'm literally to that point where, like, people don't want to have this conversation, but people love what Jake Paul is doing towards Dana White and calling him out, because it's like, oh, he's ruffling Dana White and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we want, knock that big man down. Like, no, like just respect what we have in front of us, right? Like, because when it's gone, we're not going to appreciate it. And we could say this about fighters. We could say this about everyone. Like, you don't think the New Orleans Saints are missing Drew Brees right now? Like you don't think the NFL is missing Drew Brees right now? Like, I'm at this point where Conor McGregor could lose the rest of his fights, but he's got so much FU money. I just want him in every fight now, because there is a chance that he lands that left. There is a chance that he knocks somebody out with his shoulder strike. And I want to see the first player ever to get 10 Super Bowls, which would mean Tom's got, 7? That would mean he needs to win 3 more, which means he's going to play until he's 47 if he can win. And then he'd go out winning 5 consecutive Super Bowls. Stop it. Like, we would literally be watching the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest athlete in any pro sport of all time if Brady got to 10 Super Bowls, because we'd be watching I'm sorry, Bill Russell and all of you and who played basketball in the 1950s, when guys like me were chomping at the kneecaps of 6'10" basketball players. Like, that's what the game was. But the way the games have changed, the way the rules have changed, like, I'm all in. We do a podcast at the beginning of next NFL season. You're gonna ask me my Super Bowl pick. It's gonna be Tom Brady, no matter where he is. I don't care where he is.
It's so hard to bet against Tom Brady. Everyone said, like, system QB under Bill Belichick. Now that he's in Tampa Bay, no shot wins a Super Bowl. Like, that theory's gone. Like, you can't bet against the man. He's I think the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, you can't.
For someone who was at the game, can you tell me who caught the game-winning touchdown pass? Like, do you know?
It was some no name that I didn't know who he was.
That's literally my favorite part on a football side of things. My favorite part about Antonio Brown walking off the field is that you literally just opened up the door for another person. I look at a guy like a Tyler Johnson who came in and was drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and people were high on him, and it's like Leonard Fournette. People, he became playoff and then Super Bowl Lenny. Like Tom Brady is literally gonna just find, okay, cool, thank you for showing up. You're gone. I got somebody else. Like,
right.
Watch me make some, and like
Rodgers, I'm me. Like, it doesn't really matter who's out there on the other end.
Right. Like, Rodgers to Devontae Adams can't be touched right now, in my opinion. When it comes to quarterback to wide receiver, it can't be touched in terms of chemistry, the beauty of it, the mastery of it. Like, everything is just perfect. It's perfect. But I'm excited about a guy who can come in and be like, I'm sorry, what's your name? All right, cool. So you're going to have 10 catches today. You're going to have 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and you're going to lead us to the NFC Championship game. And then it happens, and then you're like, all right, cool. And now,
I do hope it's Mike Evans. I like me some Brady to Mike Evans.
Yeah, well, that's also not fair. He's 6'10", and you could just
huge. He was literally lining up with the Jets, and I was like, he's twice the size of the guy defending him. Like, this isn't right. And I've loved Evans since he played at Texas A&M, and he is just a force. He's a big guy.
He's massive. Before we switch topics, because we do normally just talk MMA, on the topic of other sports and combat sports, I would love your thoughts on Tyler Herro's sparring footage that I shared on Twitter today.
Well, listen, the man does some questionable things, like some of his outfit choices, like, I'm not fully on board with. The boxing was bad. I saw that and immediately I watched maybe 4 seconds and got out of there, because I was like, I don't want to watch it. I like him. I don't want this to be ruined, because it's being ruined every second that I sit here and look at this.
Worst boxing, Stephen A. Smith or Tyler Herro?
Like that Stephen A. Smith is like he's more compact than Tyler Herro. He just looks like a late idiot. Like boxing. Stop. Like stick to basketball, please.
Well, I think maybe in the future, Tyler Herro, Lamar Odom boxing match that could do
For Triller.
Triller. That would be great. Not too much on like the NBA side. I probably want to talk about. I know we got Kyrie Irving back, and just a bold question: do you think Kyrie Irving will develop FOMO for the rest of the season, and he'll see himself traveling on the road, playing basketball, getting love, getting hyped, maybe getting endorsements back and doing all that, and go, all right, I'm just going to get the jabby jab and I'm going to be able to play in New York City?
Not this season, at least. I think he's just trying to make a point. I think if he had FOMO, he would have had it already when he decided, he was going to be a limited participant. And then they said he could be, he had to be a non-participant if it was going to be limited. And you saw all the fans like yearning for him to come back and wanting the big three to be back together and this and that. And he was still, no. So I think he's happy with what he can get now. Maybe he'll get vaccinated at the end of the season, but do I think he's going to do it this season? I don't. Also, I'm not a big fan of Kyrie Irving. I don't really like any of the big three. I don't really like anybody on the Nets. So I could be very biased, but I think he would have done it already if he was going to do it this season. Is the door fully closed? No.
No, because I think there may come a time in which these teams start to get healthy. Like, we're not here to do like a political science like conversation, but like the Omicron or whatever you call it, whatever, the Octagon variant is real, and like it seems to be a little less worse than some of the other variants, even though a lot more people are testing positive.
Sure. To my understanding, I think it spreads faster, but the symptoms aren't nearly as bad. But yeah, I can also be dead wrong on both the things I just said. So.
Right. Yeah, we're not scientists, and we're also not in politics. So I'm not going to go far with this, but I will say if it gets to April and everybody's healthy again, like, I think Kevin Durant needs to have a real conversation. Like, bro, what happens if we're in a game 7 at home? Like, what are you going to do?
The conversation's got to happen like before the playoffs. You know what I mean? Because
you would think so.
You when you get one, if you're getting any vaccine that's 2 doses, it's 3 weeks in between. You know what I mean? I think at this point in New York City, you've got to have both doses to do anything.
And so for me, that's what I would be if I'm Kevin Durant. I'm like, yo, so happy you're back. Can't wait to see where we go from here. But like, bro, you got to think long term. Like, what if we're at home for a game 7 against Milwaukee? Like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? You know, and if they're not doing that, then that's on them. As a Knicks fan, I could care less what the Brooklyn Nets do. I would like Julius Randle to act like a most improved player from last year. And, there's a reason why I had a choice in player T-shirt options when I bought this one, and I had Randle or Barrett. I chose the better of the two and chose Mr. RJ Barrett. But I'm not here to talk Brooklyn Nets and vaccinations or anything like that. I want to do one thing though on the NFL, and then we'll get into some fight talk here. Sure. By the way, Mike Pendleton, Kelly Murphy here. You can follow Kelly at KMurphy25 on Twitter. You can follow me at MP2310. If you follow Kelly on Instagram, don't be weird. Like, don't be weird. That is a PSA, legal disclaimer. I won't come after you, but like, I'll say some shit. All right. Just don't be weird. All right. Treat like Kelly with respect. I forget who it was. Mina Kimes, I think somebody shared from ESPN an email they got. Like, listen, we're not Neanderthals anymore. We're not cavemen anymore. Like, Kelly is far more talented than I am, way smarter than I am, and I would debate who's funnier of the two of us, but like, in all seriousness, follow her, support her work, give her the respect she deserves, and that goes for all women in sports and women in general. Like, it's
Kimes is a boss. Like, I can listen to her speak all day. She makes me smarter when it comes to pretty much anything she talks about. So when I see people disrespecting her, I'm like, oh, how far have we come that this woman is getting emails like this?
I don't want to say this to be weird because she's actually on the list of dream interviews on the show. But if anyone ever was to write an email like that to Kay Adams, I would sacrifice myself. I would be at your house.
Sacrifice myself, I think, for Laura Rutledge. She is a workhorse, and I love every second of what she does. So I'd probably sacrifice myself for Kay Adams as well.
Incredible. On top of that, I'll give the respect to the women in our sport. Megan Levy, Laura Sanko. Although Laura Sanko could probably kick most of the UFC fans' asses. So
I love her. I booked her for one of the shows that I produced just maybe 2 weeks ago, and I told her, and I wasn't lying, I was like, you are one of my favorite, if not my favorite person to have on the show. Like, you have the best sense of humor, you're so smart, and I love listening to you speak. Same goes for Megan Levy, because I just think she's perfect.
And she doesn't get near the respect she deserves as someone who does. Like, here in Chicago, we have Adam Amin, who does Bulls games. And then he'll do a Bulls game on Saturday, and he'll be in Carolina calling a Panthers game on Sunday. And like, I had a chance to talk to him after the Bulls game on Monday, and I was like, dude, as someone who went to broadcasting school, that shit is what dreams are made of right there, for man or woman. And he was like, wow, I really respect that. Like, no one says that. Like, I'm saying it. So now that I've hyped and plugged you, we got to finish on this one football point before we get into some fight stuff. Ben Roethlisberger, pretty much without saying it, has said, like, this is it. We saw him on Monday Night Football. Like, where does he go down in your, like, quarterback tiers? I believe it's 2 Super Bowls. Like, he's a very good. Is he a Hall of Fame? I think based off 2 Super Bowls, he's a Hall of Famer.
I think he's a Hall of Famer for sure. I believe he's in the top 10 passing yards and touchdowns thrown, I believe. I would say definite Hall of Famer. We actually just talked about this on Jimmy Smith's show because he's a huge Steelers fan. But, you know, there's a couple of quarterbacks of his time you put in front of him. So not the best of his era, not the top 3 of his era, but top 5. But definite Hall of Famer to me. I'm not the biggest Big Ben fan. I'm just not. I'm a bigger Brady, Rodgers, Breeze fan for sure. But I think without a doubt Hall of Famer. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, no, I think he's a Hall of Famer as well. And I think he's definitely either 4 or 5 behind the 3 you just mentioned. And to that also, if I'm going to go Hub Arkish here for a second, like over the last like 4 years, if I could go a full hub on you, which sounds weird because I forget who it was. There's a guy on Good Morning Football, and his name escapes me. I'll bring it up. But he said Hub Arkish, who was the most second famous hub on the internet this week.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that was great. I think it was Kyle Brandt. Kyle Brandt came up with that beautiful line.
Good.
He's great. But yeah, Good Morning Football is the only reason I wake up at 6 a.m. in my life right now.
Hey, actually, fun fact, my first 2 job offers out of college were Good Morning Football production assistant and my Sirius XM job.
I despise you. I mean, I'm happy that you're at Sirius XM and doing everything that you're doing, and that would mean we didn't know each other, but you should just like slide that resume back over and be like, hey, just want you to know. So how we doing? But like to go full I don't want to say hub because now I'm only going to think of Kyle Brandt's line. But if I'm going to go Arkish on everybody, I would just say like he's been so fat and immobile as a quarterback, the Big Ben, like just a big wad that's
nothing short of Big Ben.
Like and it's just so uncomfortable. Like
I said to Jimmy, because I'm obviously not a big Steelers fan by any means. I was like, I almost hope he comes back just to mess with everyone, like because he's just at that point where like the Steelers are pretty much always in it, if not very good. But he's very much obviously at the end of his career. But I'm like, I kind of just want him to come back.
Like he reminds me of like the movie, like I've been on a 90s movies kicks recently. He reminds me of like the Flubber movie. Like he's just Flubber. Like that's all Ben Roethlisberger is right now. He's Flubber.
He reminds me of like that uncle at the holidays that just like eats everything.
And then everybody goes in the backyard and he's like, all right. Someone give me a football.
Yes. Well, let me throw you a football. And it's like, we don't want you to play.
You know what I used to do back in the day? Watch this. And then it goes 3 yards. You're like, oh, I saw that before. I saw that. Like, I get the elbow injury definitely messed with his, his ability to throw and all that. But like, dude, it's like he should have had like a New Year's resolution coming into this NFL season, which you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm gonna go to the gym. When he hurt his elbow, he should have been like, look what I'm putting on weights. There's a pandemic. My elbow sucks. Like, he shouldn't have played this year. And the Steelers should have just ate it, and they should have just had a bad season, or they would have made a move for somebody, whatever. And like, yeah, no. I don't want to say good riddance because he did a lot for the Steelers organization, and very, very rare to see a guy still come in and spend his entire career with one franchise. And I commend him for that, because as much as you talk about a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if that's the case. Have things gotten better lately? Yeah, winning solves a lot of shit, Kelly Murphy. It really does. And if he knows he can beat, right? If he knows he can beat down on the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions 4 games a year, like, why wouldn't you stay here? Like, honestly, to whoever will become the next Green Bay Packers quarterback, Jordan Love or anyone else, you could just come to the NFC North and just beat the hell out of. You're guaranteed at least 3 to 4 wins every year between the 3 opponents you have. So, like, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? But, yeah, Ben Roethlisberger, Hall of Famer. And, good for him for realizing, like, yeah, I'm the homecoming. Like, I'm the Duff now. He was the Duff. He became the Duff. He wasn't, no longer the hottest girl in the room. Joe Burrow has now entered the chat. Lamar Jackson is in the chat. And Baker Mayfield's doing commercials. So, like, the Steelers are going to have a rough go in the next year or two, I believe. But, it was cool. It was cool to see the reception. It was cool to see, one of those historic franchises like the Steelers really pay homage and respect to Big Ben and on Monday Night Football. Like, perfect way to go out. Let's not talk about how the Bears would have beat them on Monday Night Football if the refs weren't getting paid off. I digress. But, like, I just leave it at that. All right, are you ready to get out some awards?
I'm ready.
Okay, so listen, this is all for interpretation, right? This isn't my award. Like, we don't have on a scale of 0 to Hub Arkish, our awards are about a 5. All right, like,
yes,
I'm not here to be like shit on your awards. You will probably shit on mine. That's fine. But but I'm okay with that. So I came up with some categories and we did our own thing to come up with our winners, but did the male fighter of the year, female fighter of the year, best fight of the year, the breakthrough fighter of the year, knockout of the year, submission of the year, and favorite moment of the year. Now, one thing I will preface by saying is you come on for all UFC pay-per-views. At times we have talked Bellator, and I will cheat and I will say Bellator has made it on one of my lists for these awards. Nope. Interesting indeed. So without further ado, we'll just go off, just go back and forth. You'll take one first. I'll take one first. I will give you the floor for the male fighter of the year.
I picked Kamaru Usman, 3 title defenses this year, knocks out Gilbert Burns in February, knocks out Jorge Masvidal in April, unanimous decisions, Colby Covington in November. And after Gilbert Burns, I mean, he really started lapping the division again. And I just feel like he only gets better every time I see him come out, to be quite honest. I think a lot of credit goes to Trevor Whitman. I think he's an absolute mastermind of a coach, but a lot of credit goes to Kamaru. He's a hell of a fighter, and that's why he's my male fighter of the year.
Yeah, and I didn't put this on the list because I do feature a lot of coaches on this podcast. But I will say, just on the topic, Trevor Whitman, coach of the year, like 5-0, 5-0, and congrats, Trevor Whitman. All right, so this was actually difficult for me because I did this earlier this year with somebody else on their show, and they also picked Kamaru. And it's not an insult when you're lapping your division but I have to kind of take scenarios and match and compare them to each other. And so for me, my male fighter of the year is Charles Oliveira, because we're talking about a guy who was nearly finished in the first round against Michael Chandler and came back and won 19 seconds later, fought, and this is the craziest thing in all due respect to Kamaru, to Oliveira. If Dustin Poirier defeats Charles Oliveira in their fight earlier last year, he's without a doubt the unanimous fighter of the year. Without a doubt. I don't even think it would be up for debate. Knocking out the sport's biggest star twice and winning the belt while everyone was calling him the uncrowned champ. Sure. And for me, given that title that Dustin Poirier had, Charles Oliveira was the underdog. Charles Oliveira was overlooked. They were like, finally, he's going to get a real test because nobody gives Michael Chandler the credit he deserves. Everyone was writing off Charles Oliveira coming into that fight against Dustin Poirier and handing him the belt. Like they were handing Dustin Poirier the belt.
Right.
So for me, beating a guy in Michael Chandler, that if you discredit Charles Oliveira nearly getting finished by anyone and then coming back and winning in the manner that he did, first of all, you discredit Michael Chandler. You just haven't watched his sport enough. That's first and foremost. Secondly, again, the uncrowned champion was Dustin Poirier, and Charles Oliveira just took it to a whole nother level. So for me, that's why I gave him my male fighter of the year. All the credit in the world to Kamaru Usman. And lapping competition is great, but he's also now going to have some new blood in there. And I do think he should have fought Leon Edwards again, before a Masvidal rematch or a Covington rematch. A lot of these are going to be rematches. But then there's guys like Bilal Muhammad who have something to say about it. So, if he stays around.
I like Bilal a lot. I don't think he can touch Kamaru.
I'm not saying he can or cannot win that fight, but he needs to prepare himself to take those fights.
Sure.
And that's the only thing that kind of deterred me away. Like, listen, you keep knocking out he can only fight who the UFC puts in front of him. And it's not the UFC's fault that other contenders weren't rising to the occasion. But like Leon's there. Leon's been there. It's the long argument of we had Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov fight on the same night in the same cage against different opponents. And that was a fight everybody said could have changed the landscape forever at 155. So for me, I have Charles Oliveira. All the credit in the world to Kamaru Usman and his multiple title defenses. But if he doesn't start taking these fights against new challengers, why not just retire? Why not just retire? Like, and I think we're getting closer to that conversation for Kamaru Usman, whereas we could be kicking off a long-term tenure as champion for Charles Oliveira. We'll see what happens next, but I mean, I'm sure I know how you think his next title fight's going to go.
I mean, it better be against the highlight, Justin Gaethje, or we riot.
We will get to that. We will definitely get to that at the end of our awards. So female fighter of the year, I'm going to take it, and it's kind of counteracted to what I just said about Kamaru, but for me, it's Rose Namajunas. What she did against Wiley earlier this year, and then coming back, I don't know. And then in the women's divisions, it's so hard, right? Because Valentina Shevchenko is there, and she's kind of cleaning out her division. Juliana Pena, and that's another thing. And obviously, we're going to see where that goes at bantamweight. But like Valentina and Rose, we're going to get the Rose Namajunas Carlos Esparza rematch, which we should have had earlier last year. But I just don't know if I wonder if there's anyone who can touch Rose right now. And we're talking about somebody who has had to go through career adversity, who has had to fight her way back up to the top, but doesn't even get the credit she deserves for it. So for me, Rose Namajunas, female fighter of the year.
Rose Namajunas was also my female fighter of the year because going into that first fight with Weili, everyone was questioning her mentality, if she had the mentality to handle being a champion again. And a lot of people were writing her off for that. So to regain her strawweight title in the fashion that she did, first of all, was unbelievable. That I'm the best and you're the best moment between her and Pat Barry was unreal. And then for her to just back it up at the end of the year again, just to really seal off that year for her. I mean, sealed the deal for me. A lot of people were quick to throw Juliana Pena in there. Obviously, dethroning Amanda Nunes at the bantamweight division. I say not so fast to that. I love me some Julie Pena, but I think Rose Namajunas is without a doubt female fighter of the year.
Yeah, if you want to call Juliana Pena either a breakthrough or most shocking upset
of the year,
or favorite moment, whatever. But we have to go through a whole year of fights and circumstances. Now, I give Juliana Pena all the credit in the world. I watched the UFC 269 pre-show and the weigh-in show, and they said, "What do you need to do to win this fight?" And she said, "I just need to get the fight. I need to get to the fight. I need to," and that's what she did. And that's what she did, and she backed it up. So credit to her. This next one makes me throw up in my mouth, but best fight of the year.
Fight of the year, and I'm obviously very much biased, is Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler. I watched it in person. It was the best moment of my life. It pretty much all but sealed a title shot for Justin Gaethje coming in 2022. When I went back and rewatched it, it wasn't as competitive as I thought it was. You could very much have made it a 30-27 Gaethje. There was a round in there that could have been a 10-8. I believe it was round 2. And at the end, it looked like Michael Chandler broke. He was hands down, walking right into those Gaethje shots. So competitiveness wise, probably not fight of the year, but I can't say it isn't. I love Justin Gaethje too much to not make it my fight of the year.
I think the fight of the year has to go to the one that makes everybody say, "Oh shit," for a full 15 minutes. Or it's an epic comeback where you're nearly out on your feet. You come back, you win the fight, whether it's by knockout or by submission. And as much as you want to call it a 30-27, my fight of the year as well was Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler. And I do credit Justin Gaethje for his performance. I will say that. Excuse me while I throw up. And it's not Justin Gaethje. I just want to throw that out there before I get ripped and banned from people. It's not Justin. It's Kelly's love for Justin Gaethje that makes me sick. I can't. I'm supporting Kelly, and it just kind of makes me sick. I don't care about who you love. It's very weird.
You can't deny the facts.
Right, I can't deny the facts, and the facts. And part of it is he pulled out the best of Michael Chandler. And I don't know if I've made it clear here, but if anyone's going to give Michael Chandler his credit, it's going to be me. And it will always be me. So hell of a fight, plenty of action. And depending on who you ask, it could have gone one of two ways. But hats off to Justin Gaethje. He got the job done. We will talk about what that fight means to Justin Gaethje in terms of lightweight division in a little bit. But for now, breakthrough fighter of the year. I'll let you take this one first.
Okay, so this was the one that I struggled with the most because immediately the first name that came in my head was Khamzat Chimaev. But then I went and I looked back. He only fought once, and he still hasn't fought that guy that I want him to fight. I want him to get in there against a higher ranked opponent. And I have nothing bad to say about him. There's no reason to discredit anything he's done, but I want him to get in there and fight a higher ranked opponent. A lot of people threw out Brandon Moreno, but again, to me, he broke through at the end of 2020. So those were kind of the two that I was going back and forth with. And at the end of the day, I did settle with Khamzat Chimaev, just because of the way that he's kind of just been in 2021. He fought one time. You would have thought he fought 3 times. He was talked about the entire year. You know what I mean? And then ultimately, when he did get in there, he backed up all the hype. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in 2022. Hopefully, getting that higher ranked opponent and kind of showcasing, his ability. But that would be the only reason I was kind of debating it. But I did settle with Chimaev.
I tied here. So, maybe I could have told you could have ties, but I tied here. I'm going to give one to one male, one female. And okay. My breakthrough male fighter of the year is Belal Muhammad. As much as you were crediting Khamzat Chimaev, I think Belal Muhammad fought everyone he had to fight, and the way he closed out the year against Stephen Thompson, whether it's an older Stephen Thompson or whatever the case may be, Bilal has called for fights against the top 5 for months now. And even after the Leon Edwards situation, you would have thought maybe he will get that one, because that was becoming a competitive fight. But to end the year as dominant as he was in that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight, sticking to his game, not fighting Thompson's fight, for me, Bilal Muhammad, breakthrough fighter of the year. He is now
I guess your female fighter of the year.
Yeah.
Is it Casey O'Neill?
No. Kayla Harrison, because I think she is going to change the game in 2022. I don't know if it's in PFL, Bellator, or the UFC, but we are getting very close to, the biggest complaint about Amanda Nunes is like she should be a bigger star than what she is. We saw Valentina Shevchenko, but even the most casual of casuals can struggle with Valentina Shevchenko starting. Yeah, she's got a Netflix film. I have yet to see it, by the way. I should probably watch it. Like, Kayla Harrison talks the talk, walks the walk, makes all the appearances in the world. She's on AEW. She's got a massive team behind her at American Top Team. And she is not, let me be very clear about this. She is not a reincarnation of Ronda Rousey. She is literally Kayla Harrison.
Yeah.
But if we go back to what Ronda Rousey did for women in the UFC and the amount of attention she commanded when she fought, I think we're right on the brink. Depending on where she goes, she's a free agent right now. We are on the brink of Kayla Harrison becoming must-see TV. So mine is more of a bigger picture. If you're talking in cage, 100% Casey O'Neill would be my breakthrough fighter of the year.
No, that's fair. That was the face, because I was like, I feel like we knew how great Kayla was. You know what I mean? Going into 2021, I didn't think she necessarily broke out. But I get what you're saying. 2022 would be monster for her.
But I think we don't know yet. I think she is. We do. I think we have a good idea. But I think she's doing what we expect her to do. And I wonder what our expectations will be when it's not somebody in the PFL.
Fair.
What are our expectations if it's Amanda, her teammate? What are our expectations if it's Juliana Pena? What about a 130? What about a cyborg matchup? What about a Kat Zingano matchup? What about a Leah McCourt over in Bellator? Or another one, Valentina Shevchenko at 135. There's so many options for Kayla Harrison. And listen, she can do her own damn thing. She can do her own damn thing. I'm never going to tell her what to do. But the options are endless for her. And if she wants to stay and continue to run through PFL and stack that bread, girl. But I'll tell you this, PFL would be making a major mistake if they didn't make her the forefront of their season in 2022. If she resigns and you don't make her the Tom Brady of your promotion, you're doing it wrong. You're absolutely doing it wrong. So that's why that. Knockout of the year, and I swear to God, Kelly, if you say Jake Paul, I am leaving this podcast.
I am leaving. Who you're speaking to? Absolutely not.
I'm just saying.
Didn't even cross my mind.
Okay. Knockout of the year. I think the big one, a lot of people are going with Kamaru Usman. I am actually going Sergio Pettis against Horiguchi. We had it late in this year.
Hello, no, stop. Before we started the awards, you said you were giving one to Bellator, and I said knockout of the year, and you were like, no.
Well, I wasn't going to give it away.
Continue.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm giving 2 to Bellator because I still have one more to give to Bellator. So I wasn't going to, when you guessed it, it's like you call my hand in the cookie jar and you're like, are you eating cookies? I'm like, no. As the Oreo crumbs are falling off my face, no. Damn it. No, the way Sergio Pettis, and what seemed to be a half-hearted attempt at a head kick, a spinning head kick, to throw that back fist at the end of it and land a knockout that nobody saw coming in a fight that he was losing. I mean, just incredible knockout by Sergio Pettis.
Yeah, I think that was second for me. I love the Pettis brothers, and that was just unbelievable. In the fight, he was very much losing to like not give up and just come back and do that. But mine's actually Sanhagen's flying knee against Frankie Edgar. Just picture perfect. RJ Clifford brought it to my attention yesterday. Like the way Sanhagen stepped out of the way so that Frankie Edgar could hit the canvas, and then the way Sanhagen walked it off and then did the belt symbol. Oh, I could watch that on replay every day. Like immaculate. Corey Sanhagen's so weird in the octagon. Like just his style's so weird. And that was just picture perfect.
I love them both. I love Corey and I love Frankie.
Me too.
Okay. Only reason Corey didn't get it is because he did what he was supposed to do in that fight. We gotta like, we can't have these young up and comers beating on vets anymore. That's my only.
I wasn't expecting it to go down like that. It was just, I can't.
All right. Well, this next one, submission of the year. I'll go first here again on this one.
Okay.
I think it's gotten some love, but it was without a doubt a no-brainer for me, and that's Anthony Hernandez submitting ADC champion Rodolfo Vieira at UFC 258. Only the second time an ADCC champion has been submitted. And if you go back to that fight, Hernandez's corner was calling for him to not even attempt the submission, and he did what he did. So Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy, gets my pick for that.
Fluffy, of course. I think on the broadcast, Anik said Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, and it sounded like he said like Anthony effing Hernandez. So everyone always brings that little bite back, and Anik loves it. Yes, I think for the actual submission, that would be mine too. But mine, I did more bigger picture the moment Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes. Like that's where I've decided to give Juliana Pena her love. To be honest, I didn't even think the submission was in as it was happening, and then the fight was over. So that's why I would say like technique wise, and I'm no X's and O's gal by any means. It wasn't gorgeous, but just the magnitude of that moment and her beating Amanda Nunes is what makes it my submission of the year.
I mean, absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. And I love Juliana Pena's response to all the fans out there who are like, she's like, you can come over and like, let me try it on you. And then
I would have died probably well before Amanda Nunes died. So
it was very reminiscent to Khabib Conor. And like, then you had to explain what a neck crank was and everything like that. I want to do this though. I want to say this because, you know, Kelly Murphy, you may admit it, you may not. And there are some people you will die on their hill defending. There are hills you will die on for certain people, no matter what the sport is, no matter what the situation is. Like in my friendship, I would die on the Kelly Murphy hill. When it comes to greatest upset ever in the UFC, I will die on the hill of Matt Serra. You cannot tell me anything different. I don't want to hear it. It is not Holly Holm. It is not Juliana Pena. It is Matt Serra. The dude was literally on the Ultimate Fighter Redemption saying, you've been there, done that, failed at it. And he got a title shot because of that and beat the greatest welterweight of all time in George St. Pierre. Yeah, sure. Whatever happened afterwards, happened afterwards. But I think come April, May, June, we're going to look back and we're going to look at Juliana Pena's body of work and we're going to go, she was there. The same way 2 years later after Holly Holm beat Ronda, we were like, it kind of made sense. We'd go back and watch Ronda Rousey's punching the air and you're like, you can't even shadow box correctly. And we thought you were going to beat Holly Holm. Like, so it's no disrespect towards Amanda Nunes, but Juliana Pena shouldn't get that title because that just means people discredited all her work leading up to that fight when she knew all she needed was that fight. So I like the pick. Very good pick. You like cued in on the moment, which now kind of shocks me because here we have like, and you know, I'm going to credit Ariel Helwani. He's got everything, right? He's got best poster of the year, best walkout of the year, moment of the year, all of this. I wasn't going to do all that. I had to narrow it down to just favorite moment of the year. Of all the events we had in 2021, what was your favorite moment of the year, Kelly Murphy?
UFC 261, fans are back. One of my good buddies, Anthony Lionheart Smith, opens up the pay-per-view, Return of the Mac hits, fans are going nuts. Moment of the year for me. And that tees up just a few months later, UFC 268 at Madison Square Garden, in which I attend my first MMA event. So the fans being back at 261 is my moment of the year.
So 2021, oh, I guess 2022, but you've knocked out some firsts over the last 6 months. Good for you. Good for you. My favorite moment of the year was Bellator, I believe, 270. In Dublin, Ireland. We had,
a good one.
Yes, we had Patchy Mix against James Gallagher, and then we had Pedro Cavallo against Patricky Pitbull. And I know things didn't go the way of the Irish that night, but
fans were right there.
I'm going to give Sean Grandy 40% of the credit here. The way he told the story as Pedro Cavallo walked out to Zombies by Cranberry, which I hated, by the way, because it was like Korean Zombie song. And I'm like, I can't. Like, it's so cringy that the Korean Zombie walks out to Zombie. It's so, like, right. I get it, but it's cringy. To hear him tell the story, do you know now that that's one of my first songs when I get ready to go out, like to a bar, like when I'm pre-gaming at the house, I'm blasting Zombies. And then I play it when I get to the bar. And this just happened this past weekend, literally giving a history lesson to the bartender. She's like, I love this song. And I'm like, do you know the story behind it? So Sean Grandy's now helping me at bars, potentially trying to pick up girls, because I know the backstory of the Cranberry song. But seriously, if you go back, there's the one moment for me. You can go on the Showtime app, you can go to Bellator 270, you can bring it all up, and you can watch it. And I would, if you don't get in trouble, whoever you are going back and doing this, if you go back and turn your TV all the way up, max volume, and you watch the Pedro Cavallo walkout, the way the crowd takes over, just the walkout. Props to the Bellator production team for just allowing it to be a crowd moment. But then they cued in on, you couldn't hear Michael C. Williams, the cage announcer. You couldn't hear the opening intros because the crowd was still going.
Crowd of the year.
Like, I get goosebumps. Yeah, crowd of the year for sure. Favorite moment of the year. Now, obviously, I think it would have been a top 5 moment ever if one of the two Irish would have won.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Like, there's a reason Bellator is going back to Dublin so quickly, and I believe it's because of the reception and the way they did it at Bellator 270.
I don't doubt it one bit. That crowd was unbelievable.
Let's move, before we wrap this up, let's move to some of the most recent and current events, and 2 kind of storylines as well as 2 fight announcements. We'll start with the fight announcements because they are brand new. One of my favorites, for no specific reason of anything he did in 2021, which could have been one of my favorite moments of the year, when he fought Calvin Kattar, that being Max Holloway is getting his trilogy against Alexander Volkanovski. Very rare that we have a trilogy set regardless, but then a trilogy set where one guy has lost the first 2 meetings, but this was the only fight to make in the featherweight division. And if it's not 50-50, then people haven't been watching. Your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. When I saw this title announcement, I quote tweeted it and I said music to my ears, but there was never a doubt. There's no other title fight you could make in the featherweight division at this moment, especially with what Holloway has done in his last 2 fights. It's very much 50-50. A lot of people have seen both the fights 50-50. One of which a lot of people thought Holloway won. Was that the first or the second fight? I forget.
Well, it depends. It depends on who you ask. I think it's more so the second one because that one went to a split decision. But the first one being on Fight Island, I will just say that the first one they awarded to Volk by unanimous decision. I personally don't believe you can win a fight off leg kicks damage. I don't believe the amount of leg kicks you're landing should. Actually, I believe it was the second one on Fight Island. The first one, I believe, was the Usman Covington card, and Volkanovski landed a bunch of leg kicks on Holloway, and he was pressuring. And if you want to consider that, as John Anik says, striking, grappling, and octagon control, if you want to kind of curtail that into leg kick damage and pressing forward, I mean, whatever. But I think the second one is debated as the closer of the 2. Yeah. For me, we don't see we don't see a lot of guys come up short in title fights, especially former champions, and then go in and make adjustments to their game the way Max Holloway did. I really think it would be the bow on top of all the improvements that Max Holloway and the adjustments he's made in his career would be to beat Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means we get a fourth fight. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I know Giga Kikadze and Calvin Kattar are running it in the first UFC event. Yep. It's right around the corner. Our long layoff of UFC events will be over. You could, right? And you can make the case that the winner of that could be in title contention, especially if it's Giga. But
yeah, right.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like, all credit to Alexander Volkanovski and his amazing 10-0 record in the UFC. But like, if we've learned anything, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, like, everybody loses. If your name's not Habib, like, everybody loses. And like, even John Jones, like, I'll count the Dominic Reyes fight as a loss. Like, dude, people saw that fight, bro. Like, we all saw that fight. So I just don't know if there's a better time for Max Holloway to be getting this title fight than right now. And I think he's going to capitalize on all the adjustments and improvements he's made over the past year, which I give him credit for, because I think a lot of fighters would have been deterred, would have been shut down, would have thought they're never getting another chance. He's getting a third crack at it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, never a doubt that this was the fight to make. Very much 50-50. I do think Volkanovski's got Holloway's number, though. I think Volkanovski's going to win. But like you said, I'm not going to sit here and doubt Max Holloway. That's like doubting Tom Brady in the playoffs. Like, it's stupid. You know what I mean? Especially after what we've seen these last two fights, he's a monster. So pumped. Like, when I saw this was announced, I was like, finally, like, you knew it was happening. You just needed a date. So I'm very excited to see this one go down. And I think the next fight goes down on the same card.
Does go down on the same card. It's Peter Yan against Algerman Sterling. They will finally run it back pretty much almost a year to the day from their illegal knee that Yan landed on Sterling. Sterling, they were supposed to fight in October. Sterling had to withdraw because of, neck injury. And it seems he's gotten the all clear now in terms of his health. And we'll finally have a unification because, Peter Yan fought Corey Sandhagen for the interim title. And I'm going to give it yeah, but it wasn't. Like, it was great. But, like, that fight was Corey Sandhagen putting his foot on the gas just a little bit more. That's all it would have taken for that fight to possibly be a different outcome. And but I get it. It wasn't that, right? I understand. I understand. But, like, listen, if the ball bounces one way or the other, like, you have to acknowledge that could have happened. And I do think if Corey Sandhagen was just a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more pushy, we could have had a much different outcome in that fight. There was multiple moments watching that fight, which I watched it at home. Thank you, UFC, for putting on a UFC event or a UFC pay-per-view, event for free. That was very nice of you guys.
Especially now the pay-per-view prices are going up.
Yep. Eric Kowal of My MMA News, which I may or may not work for, reported today that the price is going up from $69.99 to $74.99. But I watched that fight and just screaming, Corey Sandhagen, just press forward, just press, like, let your hands go. And listen, in title fights, I've obviously never been in one or in a cage fight for, all that matter. But, what I don't like about this Sterling Yan fight is that everyone's like, oh God, all right, finally, so Yan will get the belt back, and Sterling, like we're gonna get the same Aljamain Sterling that we got last year, the guy who was losing when Yan threw the illegal knee. Like, it's just we're gonna take the same two people from last year. They're gonna fight this year. Nobody's changed. This is what we got.
I am so excited for this fight because the storylines that have stemmed from their first fight, the jokes, the memes, it's been so far overdone that I'm ready to put a rest to it. I do think Petr Yan's a significantly better fighter than Aljamain Sterling. I think he's the best bantamweight in the world for sure. I do think he's going to win. Do I think we're going to see an improved Aljamain Sterling? Yeah, I do. I hope we do, and I think we will. It would be I'd be shocked if he didn't make any adjustments going into this fight, but I do still think Piotr Jan's going to get his belt back. But I'm ready for this one to be put to bed. Like really more than anything. I'm excited for the fight, but for all the stupid bullshit that's come from the first one to be done. Like I'm sick of it. People saying Aljo's scared. Fighters aren't scared. This is what they do for a living.
Right.
People saying that Aljo's faking his injury. He's not faking his injury. All the stupid stuff, I'm very ready for it to be done.
I agree. And then there are a couple things on this. I would caution, not just you, because you obviously know this, but I would caution fans. If you really think that that's what we're going to do, we're going to take Jan from their first fight and Sterling from their first fight, and that's who's going to, first of all, watch fights. Second of all, go into exactly what Kelly's talking about in the back and forth and the memes and the jokes and the tweets and the interviews and all this. That all plays a part. Prime example. I'll tell you about a Brazilian champion who no one touched for 10 years. And then a loudmouth Irishman showed up, knocked him out in 13 seconds. So, and Juliana Pena, right? Everyone's like, she thinks she's going to be Amanda Nunes. She was like, just give me the fight. She's showing up at press conferences that Dana White's doing for another pay-per-view event going, where's Amanda? Oh, I heard she's healthy. Can we get that? Like, they're 100% is an emotional side to this. And we don't know how either of them are going to react when the cage door closes. But I would caution people to realize that there's going to be an emotion factor to this. And whoever breaks first emotionally, that's who's going to lose this fight.
It also plays both ways because, like I said, there's these like emotional factors that are being JoJo, whatever they're going out. But then you look at Piotr Jan, everyone's pretty much saying you're getting the belt back. All of those things. Look what happened. Right. Everyone thought you, John, people were calling you crown champion in 205. Like it plays both ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would say the same thing of Dustin Poirier, right? Like everyone's like Dustin's an uncrowned champ, paid in full. As soon as he walks into the cage against Oliveira, he's gonna walk right back out. We're gonna give him the belt. Like it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. So I would just caution people on that. And I'd like to see this fight go to the ground. Now, my last thing on this, two more things on UFC 272. I think it's already been labeled, but is Volkanovski Holloway 3 your main event over Sterling Jan? Your audio cutting out. Yeah, you sound like you're in like the Matrix. No, you're good. I can hear you. You just sound like you're in the Matrix right now. You're. Right now, Tapology has Volkanovski and Holloway as the main event.
Which would make sense.
Yeah, and I will say the one other thing I want to put on this is that there's 3 grudge matches on this card. There's the 2 title fights, and then there's Marina Moroz against Maria Agapova, and you could just look up their history. It is wild. Moroz has accused Agapova of drug use, and that's why she got kicked out of the gym, and they've been calling for this fight. And after Agapova's last fight, she was like, I want to fight you. You got to respond and you got to answer for all the things you said. So UFC 272, let's just call it bad blood, because I'm in for it. I'm definitely in for it. We don't have too many more fights on that card announced. There's a bunch of them, but we want to get another bad blood card or bad blood fight on there. I'd be more than okay with that. But yeah, no, that card is shaping up to be special. And then we got some storylines here, Kelly, as we wrap up. And thank you as always for all your time. And one came to light a little bit even more today. Was the Markel Martin, was that your doing? I can't hear you now. Now I actually can't hear you. Hold on. Let me pause this for a second.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so technical difficulties worked out. Usually that would be time for White Claws, but I'm doing water today. Like propelling water. We're staying hydrated in 2022.
Healthy kings and queens this year.
Yes, seriously. All right, so Markel Martin, the manager agent of Francis Ngannou, made some waves on Sirius XM. Was that your doing?
That was a Kelly Murphy booking. I booked Markel Martin for throwing down with Renee Paquette and Misha Tate, as I knew he would have tremendous insight to this whole Francis Ngannou situation, and that he did.
And he did. And the biggest thing is that, Dana White came out and said, listen, he's got one fight left on his contract. If you don't want to be here, that's fine. And things get a little more complicated because if you don't know, if Francis wins, he's pretty much automatically given a second fight, even if that was his last fight on his deal. So if he beats Ciryl Gane at UFC 270, which Kelly and I have already agreed we'll have a preview show for, if he beats Ciryl Gane, we will have to kind of see Francis Ngannou again. And Markel Martin went on Sirius XM throwing down with Renee and Misha and said, listen, it's not all about the money. And I think that's, when we see these contract disputes in the UFC, people automatically assume it's all about money. And then recently something came out, and I don't know if it was from Francis himself. Probably should read all these things, but sometimes it's hard to keep up with everything. And it was said that he needs a boxing clause in his next contract. And to spice it up, right before we go on air today, Tyson Fury calls out Francis. They go back and forth. Francis says, hey, how about MMA rules with boxing gloves? And then Tyson said, I thought you said you could beat me and Deontay Wilder. And then he said, we can do it under any special rule set after my fight. So all that, where do you stand on this Francis Ngannou unique and rather bizarre situation with the UFC?
It is really so crazy that we're pretty much on the verge of seeing a sitting champion fight out his or her contract. Since I've been involved in the sport, I haven't seen it. And then I've talked to a lot of people that, have been in the sport for a long time, and it's very much a rarity. It sucks. I mean, Francis Ngannou is amazing. I don't even know how to describe him. Like, he's such a nice person. All of the interactions I've had with him professionally have been incredible. Yet he's the baddest man on the planet in every sense of the phrase. He's your UFC heavyweight champion. He has the physique of it. Like, he is just a monster in the octagon, but the sweetest man on earth out of it for sure. And Markel said a lot. He said, it's not all about the money. Francis wants to be more active, which makes a lot of sense. He said that he wants to be promoted more. That whole, home tour of him bringing the belt back to Cameroon was all his doing. It wasn't Francis' doing, not Markel's. The UFC really had no part of that. And Francis has such an interesting and engaging backstory that I think on their end of things, they wanted to be more out there. You know what I mean? More promoted in that sense of things. And then he did get into the boxing thing, that's something Francis would like to do. But it seems like Dana and the UFC don't want to play ball with Francis right now as your sitting heavyweight champion. It's very hard for me to believe that they're going to allow him to get a boxing clause in his contract, right?
So lots to decipher there on my end. And I'm not trying to discredit Markel Martin or anything he said on the show that you had him on with Renee and Misha. I had a very heated holiday argument with a good friend of mine about Francis Ngannou's situation. We have seen certain fighters come in, have the platform of the UFC, but they grabbed a hold of their promotional rights by their actions and their words. The three easiest examples are three of the biggest stars in the sport: Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz. They said, I will fight for you, but it's my brand. It's my content. You will promote me because I'm going to make you money. Whereas I think part of the issue with getting people to fight Francis is, let's go back to the Alistair Overeem. Literally seconds before he knocks out Alistair Overeem, John Anik says verbatim, not a lot of people calling Mick Maynard's phone to fight this guy. Boom, uppercut from hell hits, and Alistair Overeem hasn't been the same since. The problem with that's a real problem. is you got to have people who want to fight Francis Ngannou. And I'm sure Stipe would want that trilogy fight. Hard to market it. Who else is there? Curtis Blades. Hard to market it. Derek Lewis. Hard to market it, right? So the issue that I personally feel is that Francis allowed the UFC to say, you're our cash cow, will make you what you are. He didn't, the whole going back home, amazing. Love the story. I am not here to dog Francis Ngannou. I am on Team Francis. But I think there's a reality of, I'm not saying he needed to talk shit, but he needed to know that he is the baddest man on the planet. He is the scariest man on the planet with one of the most devastating right hands ever and the most inspiring story to people all over the world. I mean, if you look at the guy before him, Stipe Miocic, he's had his own contract disputes with the UFC, but he still has endorsement deals out the ass because he says, hey, I'm a part-time UFC champion. I'm also a part-time firefighter or full-time firefighter. Volunteer at that. And he's got that personality. I definitely want to see the personality of Francis a little bit more. He deserves to get paid more. He deserves to fight more. And he deserves to control Francis Ngannou, the brand. And I think too much was, well, we got this monster who can knock out anyone. And it's almost, and I really hate to say this, and I am not objectifying Francis Ngannou, but it's almost like they created this special gem and he's from a laboratory. And they were like, you will move at our pace. You will move at our speed. This is what you will endorse. This is what you will get behind. And if we feel like it, will get behind you. And I think that's been the only issue with Francis Ngannou. And I would absolutely, the biggest thing we've ever seen Francis do was after the Overeem fight. He said, where is the belt? And what did he fight for after that? He fought for the belt. Because I don't care if you're Dana White, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, Jake Paul. I ain't saying shit to that guy. You see what he just did? Yeah, I'm good. Yes, sir. Here's your contract. You know?
Right. I mean, I can't see a situation like there's no reason why the UFC shouldn't want to market him. Like you said, he's just an absolute monster in there. Like he is in every way, shape, and form. Like I said, the baddest man on the planet. He's got the backstory. Like he's got the dominance. So I really hope that they can get this contract situation sorted out. I mean, he has a tough fight coming up at it's 270.
Yep.
Ciryl Gane is very much a dangerous opponent to Francis. As of now, I do have Ciryl Gane winning that fight.
All right, no pre-show, guys. No preview show. She just gave it away.
Listen, that's why I said as of now. My thoughts may change when we get a little bit closer to the fight, and we'll discuss obviously when we get closer to the fight. So that's really why I hope these contract situations get sorted out, because let's say Francis does win, I mean, which is very much a reality. What's a very easy fight to market? John Jones, who is looking to fight in 2022. Yeah. They can get to a freaking number between the two of them and the UFC. Like, oh, that's all we need. And then we can get the fight that we've all wanted to see for a freaking year now.
I think the reality, and thank you for bringing him up, the reality is that there are so many people who are done with the John Jones circus. You know what puts away a circus? Getting knocked the F out by Francis Ngannou. Okay. Now that's not to say Ciryl Gane couldn't knock out John Jones or defeat John Jones. And Ciryl Gane has a very serious chance of beating Francis. But you know what takes a propane tank to the promotional value of Francis Ngannou and ignites him into stardom? If he knocks out Ciryl Gane, cuts a promo on how he's mistreated. I just knocked out my former teammate. Where is John Jones? Because I'm knocking his ass out next. And then I'll decide on my future. I would
pay every bit of $74.99 to watch Francis Ngannou versus John Jones.
I would die for Francis to, and maybe I'll write up the blueprint. Maybe I'll write copy for him, whatever he needs.
Get it over to Eric Nixick, who can get it over to Francis Ngannou.
If I honestly think the UFC could shut down everything else and put that at International Fight Week. I don't need another title fight. If Francis did those three things, beat Ciryl Gane, called out the fact that he just beat a former teammate of his, called out John Jones, that he's going to knock him out, and then talked about his UFC future after that, because he's guaranteed that fight next, like Dana White would be like, screw Jake Paul coming after me. I got Francis coming after me, and I'm gonna do whatever this guy says. Like I have to. And the reality is that yes, Cyril Gane has a very good chance of winning that fight, but like I also thought Stipe Miocic had a very good chance of beating Francis Ngannou.
I did literally until I saw Francis stuff the first takedown, and then I was like, oh boy.
And then it looked like
going the way I thought it was going
Stipe got sniped from the crowd. like no one wants to talk about how bad that fall was.
No, like the angle that's going viral, like as of this week, the cage side angle makes me sick.
Yeah. And Stipe lived through that, and he's lived to tell another.
Okay, and he's also out here saying he wants the fight again. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like okay, like we thought Antonio Brown was crazy. Steve A, you want to fight that guy again? Okay. Now, obviously, we don't know. We don't know how that could go, but listen, I think now is the time that Francis Ngannou needs to take control of himself as a promotional tool and his team. And listen, I know Eric Nixick isn't concerned with promoting Francis Ngannou. At the end of the day, the way they're going about it is the right way. It should just be what we do in the cage. Because guess what? Outside of a Derek Lewis shit show and a Stipe loss, Curtis Blades was on this podcast telling me how those punches hurt. Flying knees hurt. Like those things hurt, right? You're changing people's lives forever. That's what Francis and every fight is changing lives. But when you're getting put out the way Francis puts people out, that's a game changer, and the UFC needs to get behind it. But I think they got something else to get behind, and I know you're gonna riot, and I don't love it.
It's the delusional Conor fans.
I don't love it. I don't love it. But I might. Here's the thing. So the other situation we needed to discuss is lightweight champion Charles Oliveira, after defeating, why am I drawing a blank, Dustin Poirier, had a little backstage interaction with Justin Gaethje, who was cage side and enjoying the night. Everyone assumed Gaethje was next. Nobody was mad at it. Nobody made a stir about it. Nobody cared. Like, yeah, makes sense. Like 1 + 1 = 2. And then Charles Oliveira, who is the champion, who kind of has his own rights to say and do as he pleases, goes on MMA fighting and says, I think I want the Conor fight. And now a guy who has lost his last 2 fights, coming off a broken tibia and fibia, and is only best known at this point of his career for his marketing ability, may walk right into a title fight while Justin Gaethje burns down the apex. Like I'm gonna let you take the floor first, because there's layers to it.
What did Canelo Alvarez say when someone even mentioned Kamaru Usman's name to him? Payday. That's why everyone wants to fight Conor McGregor, because it's a big payday. He's a big name. It'll draw big eyes. There's nobody more deserving of his title shot right now than Justin Gaethje. Furthermore, the winner of Beneil Dariush and Islam Makhachev, Conor McGregor's name should be nowhere near the title shot conversation. Nowhere near it. And I don't even see Conor being ready to go till August, the earliest. So what, does Oliveira want to wait to defend till August? No. You're defending against Justin Gaethje in like April or May. And that's the end of it. Like, enough of these talks need to be put to bed.
Okay, but now I'm going to shift. I'm going to put the pitchfork down. I'm going to ask you, because this is probably the part of the conversation I'm going to clip and put on social. So I'm giving you the floor here. What should be said about Charles Oliveira understanding his position as champion and going, oh, I know how to get the best payday. I know how to get the best fight for my life and my career and my family. Conor McGregor. You know what, Dana? I know you love Conor. I want Conor. You want me to fight Conor? You want Conor in a title fight? Give me Conor.
Listen, I mean, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to know that Conor McGregor is a big payday. That's why everybody wants to fight him, kind of regardless of what's going on. Once Charles Oliveira said it, I was obviously mad, as I think Justin Gaethje is the deserving title contender right now, but he's not stupid. The UFC and Dana White tend to fold for Conor, and Conor can pretty much do whatever he wants. You know, if the opportunity arises, Conor would love to be in this title shot. And for Oliveira, like you just said, Conor's coming off back-to-back losses, a full broken leg, and it would be a monster payday. Charles Oliveira is doing nothing wrong as the lightweight champion, but I'm just hoping that everything kind of stays status quo, which is a big ask in the MMA world, and Justin Gaethje gets this title shot right around mid 2022. And then after that, like I said, whoever wins that fight, the winner of Beneil and Islam after that. Nowhere in this situation did I say Conor McGregor's name, now did I?
I would caution people that Conor could come back, get a tune-up, if you want to call it that. He could get a fight against a Tony Ferguson, against a Michael Chandler, and maybe the UFC stands firm and they're saying, no, you fight Justin Gaethje next. And if Conor goes in and he wins, I would see them putting Beneil or Islam winner on the back burner and going, Conor's got to win. And let's say it's not that you want to hear this come out of my mouth, but if Charles Oliveira defeats Justin Gaethje, we're just going to get louder screams for a Conor fight. And if Conor comes in and gets a win, in between that time, it almost becomes undeniable that he has this fight.
You're 100% right, because it's Conor McGregor. He could come in and fight a Gregor Gillespie, you know what I mean? And that's nothing against Gregor Gillespie, just where he is in the rankings. Win, even if it was razor close and it was like a split decision win, a win's a win. And if Conor gets a win in the meantime, because of who he is, I could see him skyrocket right into title contention. That's just kind of the name of the game we're in.
The weird part about it is you want to label it as a problem, but it's literally the golden ticket they've created.
Do I compete when I watch Conor McGregor? No. Do I buy it every time? Yes, I do. And now it'll be $74.99 out of my pocket right now.
Now, let me ask you this, though, as a Justin Gaethje stan, we'll wrap up here in the next minute or so. Would you rather Gaethje beat Oliveira or Oliveira fight Conor, and maybe Conor beats Oliveira, then it's Conor Justin, because Conor has nowhere to go and he has to fight, or he maybe even retires?
I mean, I think Conor's a much better matchup for Justin than Charles Oliveira, but just with the way that the lightweight division is laid out right now and kind of the timeline of things, Justin Gaethje really is deserving of this title shot right now. There should be, in no way, shape, or form, should Conor McGregor come in and fight, even have the chance to fight Charles Oliveira before Gaethje gets his hands on him, you know?
Yes.
So just because of the way we are right now and the way things fall, that's what I think. Would I love to see Justin Gaethje versus Conor McGregor? Absolutely. When they were drawing back and forth like a year ago, I was all in. I would still be all in if, the situation played out correctly.
I will make a bold prediction. Let's say Conor fights Charles Oliveira. Conor wins. I see him vacating the belt, fighting Nate Diaz at 170, and possibly calling it quits. I don't know. I don't know how much longer Conor wants to force himself to stay around. When you've got the Black Forge Inn doing great numbers over in Ireland, his new restaurant, and then you have Proper 12 money just falling out of your pockets and shoelaces and shoes.
It's FU money at this point.
It really is. It really is. I would call on Conor McGregor, as much as people don't like him. I would call on Conor McGregor to come save the UFC from this Jake Paul debacle. I don't know if Conor wins that fight, but I can tell you Jake Paul already doesn't sound coherent when he wakes up in the morning. I would hate for a Conor left hand to land flush on him, because we went on almost 2 full hours without mentioning Jake Paul. But I would like that chapter to end in combat sports in 2022. It's not a New Year's resolution. It's nothing. I want that chapter to be over with. I'm good. You did what you did. You said what you said. You performed the way you performed. Good for you. Either fight a boxer or get the F out. And that's all I got on that. I am Mike Pendleton. She is Kelly Murphy. Kelly, 2 hours. As always, you're amazing. Appreciate you staying on. And real quick, I just kind of want to have a moment with you telling you, like, you were obviously the most frequent guest on the show this past year. You know, you came on and you were talking about what 2021 was for you. And, you know, you said train keeps rolling, and like, I couldn't pick a better person to be riding that train. Like, I can't wait to see what this year does for you. And I want a ticket on that train. I want to be a passenger on that train. Cause like, you literally, I've said it in kindness and in friendship that I think you have the makings to be some of the biggest, especially along the female names in this sport, the Sankos, the Olivis, the Karen Bryants, and so many others, the Renees, the Mishas. You don't have to get in there and fight. Like, you are surrounding yourself with so many right people and doing so many good things in the right spots. Like, hats off to you. All the credit in the world to you. Supposedly I'm getting a new laptop, which means Zooms would be able to happen on my laptop, which means I'd be able to do more this year. And if that is the case, I will just say that promise I'll make to you and the viewers is that we'll make it more interactive come preview shows. We'll try to get a coach to join us, try to get a fighter to join us. That's something I would love to explore, having an opportunity to do with you, is having these like multiple interaction shows, because there are calls for you to come on the show. There are tweets about you whenever you're on. Sure, I don't know, 2 hours is a great thing every single time, but I think it's worth it. And, you know, UFC preview shows were usually about an hour, you know, for us. So I mean everything I said. I can't wait to have you back in like 2 weeks, and we'll discuss everything at UFC 270 is and more. But seriously, keep doing all that you're doing, and can't wait to talk to you in like 2 weeks.
Thank you. I'm so excited. And I have a personal request. If we do start getting coaches on, we got to get Eric Nixick to come hang out. I think he's phenomenal.
I might need you to put in that. I get texts back once in a while, but I feel like I might, you know, here's the thing. I'll admit this. I enjoy, appreciate, and respect the people in this business more than I do family and friends. Like, without this business, I don't know what I have. And that's just me being a little too serious right now, but that is just the way it is. I make it almost a mandatory thing of mine to check in with some of the people that I have the utmost respect for every somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks. And over 2020, with everything that I've been obviously very open about on social media and a lot in 2021, I didn't do that. And so at the end of 2021, especially since being injured, I've tried to mend those relationships. I've tried to let people know it was me, not you. And yeah, so I'm down. I am absolutely down to have Eric Nix. I'm down to have anybody on. I'm down to have anybody on. Listen. I see. That's the only one. That's the only one. Like, I just had Dylan. No, I don't know if I want a roast session. I don't know if I want a roast session. Between you and Dean, I'm good. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm actually great on that. I'm okay on that. I don't need all that. But I do think whether it's simply pay-per-view weeks or if our schedule starts to line up more, like, the way these are numbered on YouTube is that every person is a new episode, but this may become just a separate entity, its own playlist of preview shows with you. And I'm more than okay with that. And again, any opportunity I can give you a floor to kind of just showcase your brand, all in.
I really appreciate it. I love coming on. I love being able to talk fights and kind of every fight sports. Like anything in between that isn't serious exam. I have lots of serious exam, but a lot of work there. But like I said, it was a big 2021 for me, especially in the best way. Still moving right along 2022. So we got to get our first.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's make it a thing. At KMurphy25 on Twitter. Make sure you follow all the Sirius XM shows. Channel 156 on Fight Nation. I know she's on Throwing Down. I know she's on Busted Open. She's on the Jimmy Smith Unlocking the Cage. You can literally find Kelly Murphy anywhere. I know your role has expanded, so congrats to you again on that. But in all seriousness, like, let's make these preview shows a thing. Let's make guests the thing. And literally, because we have to, like, the UFC has their weigh-in show that they do the morning of, and that's pretty laid back. And a good friend of both of ours, RJ Clifford, gets involved. Like, we're just two schmucks, really, in the reality of this all. So let's get these coaches on. Let's share drinks. Let's get a drink sponsor. I'm not asking for Howlerhead, but White Claw, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
I'm trying to do everything I can to get the state of my life to know who I am. So
I'm down. Kelly Murphy, thank you so much. We'll talk in like 2 weeks for UFC 270.